Hello everyone and welcome to Techstrong TV. Today is Tuesday, August 9th, and I'm your host, Natan Solomon. In today's show, we'll bring you great interviews with awesome people from some of our favorite companies from around the world, so stay tuned. As always, I'll start with our Techstrong news recap, filling you in on the biggest tech headlines that are making waves. Then, Alan sits down with Neil Bridges, the CISO at Query AI. In this interview, Alan and Neil discuss the cybersecurity talent shortage and what CISOs can do to overcome it. Next, Alan spoke with Arun Narayan, who is the CEO and co-founder of Materialize. In this interview, Alan and Arun discuss the batch data to real-time revolution and how companies of all sizes are positioned to take advantage of it. Alan then welcomes James Turgle to the show. James is the vice president of Optiv, and he talks about the fear of brand damage, regulatory scrutiny, and financial repercussions. We then bring you to RSA, where Charlene sat down with KZ Rosenthal, CEO and co-founder of Verica, Aaron Reinhardt, CTO and co-founder of Verica, and Tony De La Fuente, lead of Prowler Pro and founder of Prowler. The group discusses Verica's new security tools, and they also dive into the software supply chain, so be sure to check that out. We're then joined by our very own Cody J. Brown, who will hop on to tell us about some upcoming webinars. After Cody, Mike Rothman, Techstrong Group's new Chief Strategy Officer, talks to Kate McLean, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Lacework, about its new threat detection and alert investigation capabilities. They discuss not just the new features, but also the evolution of CSPM and also the benefits of having their tool built on Snowflake, a data analytics platform. We then go to KubeCon Cloud NativeCon, where Mitch met with James Steele, the partner community advocate at Linode. In this interview, Mitch and James spoke about the MSP space, how to build valuable partnerships, and how to measure the success of a partnerships and MSP program. Next, we have a double dose of View with Vizard. In the first, Mike interviews Joseph Payne, who is the CEO of Code42. Joseph and Mike talk about why cutting the cybersecurity budget in a downturn probably isn't the best idea. In the second, Mike sits down with Karen Crowley, Director of Product Solutions at Deep Instinct, and the two spoke about the MIT white paper, which explains how deep learning algorithms are transforming cybersecurity. We then go back to RSA, where Alan met up with Amol Kulkarni, the Chief Product and Engineering Officer at CrowdStrike. There, Amol and Alan discussed DevOps culture, CrowdStrike's asset graph, and CrowdStrike's acquisition of Humio. Finally, at KubeCon Cloud NativeCon, Alan sat down with the head of DevOps advocacy at JFrog, Baruch Sadegurski, to discuss the evolution of DevOps and how to break security silos. That's what we have coming up for you here on Techstrong TV. Let's get the show started. Enjoy! Hi again, everyone. Here are the headlines for August 9th. On Sunday, the U.S. Senate passed the Inflation Reduction Act, a bill aimed at fighting climate change, lowering drug prices, and raising corporate taxes. It will go to the House of Representatives, where it is expected to be voted on and passed as early as this upcoming Friday, before being signed into law. The bill itself has a $430 billion price tag, and it is intended to reduce carbon emissions while also cutting prescription costs for the elderly and tightening enforcement on taxes for corporations. However, there is ongoing debate as to whether this bill will actually work towards lowering inflation. Next up, it seems that the advertising slowdown isn't just affecting tech giants. U.S. television networks and news publishers are experiencing similar slowdowns in the advertising market. Warner Bros., CBS, The New York Times, and USA Today have all stated that ad revenue is not what they expected during the most recent quarter. This ad slowdown has become more apparent as rising inflation has begun to affect consumer spending. These companies expect marketers to continue to pull back on ad spending from the dip in consumer spending, but overall, advertising spending is expected to increase for the next year. Next in the news, the Japanese tech company SoftBank Group posted a $23 billion loss in the most recent quarter. This is a shift from the $5 billion profit in the same quarter last year. The company stated these losses are caused by the current global uncertainty from the war in Ukraine, as well as inflation and high energy costs. Other factors that have caused these losses includes the recent drop in price of Alibaba, which SoftBank is a major investor in, and the recent depreciating value of the yen, which SoftBank has to pay back borrowings in. Next, a U.S. appeals court ruled that artificial intelligence cannot be an inventor. The court rejected a computer scientist named Stephen Taylor's bid for patents on his AI created last Friday. The court states that the Patent Act requires an inventor to be a natural person, not an AI. The AI's rejected patent bids include a beverage holder and a light beacon. Taylor argues that denying AI patents undermines the purpose of the Patent Act, limiting the progress of science and useful arts. Google has filed 2 new lawsuits against Sonos, alleging that they are infringing on patents concerning smart speakers and voice control. Specifically, the first lawsuit focuses on wireless charging and hot word detection, while the second focuses on speakers, determining which should respond to a user's voice. Both lawsuits were filed on Monday, with Google seeking to ban imports on products infringing on these copyrights. This is only the newest lawsuit in a long-standing legal battle between the two companies over the past 2 years. On DevOps.com, we have an article about how to avoid burnout. There is a growing amount of burnout in the tech industry, from issues such as incorrect work-life balance to a faster and more is better mentality. Limiting this burnout is important for both workers and businesses. This article mentions 5 tips to avoid burnout, including snuffing out the always-on mentality and using empirical data to inform future goalposts. To learn more about ways to prevent burnout, check out DevOps.com. On Security Boulevard, we have an article explaining a huge flaw in the emergency alert system. Monroe Electronics and its digital alert systems are accused of sloppy software and poor patching. The details will be revealed at DEF CON 30 next week. The article looks at some of the community's reactions to this announcement. And finally, on Container Journal, we have an article looking at 3 CNCF tools for cloud-native chaos engineering. Chaos engineering is a great way to test how systems respond to unforeseen events. Vigorous testing is important for cloud-native architectures and microservices, and luckily there are platforms to help with chaos engineering. The article highlights Chaos Mesh, Litmus, and Chaos Blade as CNCF tools that can help with chaos engineering. To learn more about these platforms, check out Container Journal. And that's today's Techstrong News Recap.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Techstrong TV interview. My guest for this interview is a first-time guest. I don't think we've had anyone from the company on before. I want to introduce you to Neil Bridges. Neil is the CISO at a company called Query.ai. I hope I got that right.
You did. You got it right, Alan. I appreciate the intro. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Hey, Neil, I guess let's start maybe a little bit with you. You know, you're CISO over at Query.ai. Well, give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me on the show. A little bit about myself. I've been in cybersecurity for well over 20 years. Started back in the 90s, hacking on my dad's IBM computer back in the day. Did a stint about 10 years with the United States Air Force, where I did a lot of cyber. Spent a good amount of time doing offensive cybersecurity operations for the National Security Agency. Also built the first functional cyber training unit for the Air Force, where I trained most of what people have heard about through the Snowden links is the modern day hackers at the NSA. After that, after I got out of the Air Force, I spent a long time building red team type of operations for a lot of Fortune 100 companies. I did a stint with a big four out of the Midwest, where I built their red team and incident transformation practice. And then I've led security operations teams for multiple Fortune 100 companies in the space as well. Run my own business, and I'm also a host of the Cyber and Security live stream on Twitch, where we speak to tens of thousands of viewers, every week, regarding various types of cybersecurity topics. And so, been doing a lot. Got the fortunate opportunity to come be CISO at Query probably Q1 of 2022. Two great founders over there, Diraj and Andrew, asked me to kind of come and bring that years of experience with cybersecurity to kind of help not just bring cybersecurity from a CISO perspective into a budding startup and really try to ingrain security from the ground up, but to also bring that practitioner perspective to their product development side and make sure that they were building it with the end user in mind.
I love it. Excellent, man, and congratulations on a lot of those accomplishments.
Thank you.
You mentioned Query. Well, we both mentioned Query.ai. And, just from the name, you say, okay, what's the connection to CISO and security? Why don't you if you don't mind, give a little core background, a little pitch to the audience about what Query AI is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart. As you know, you've been in security for a long time too. I've built a number of security operations teams, just security teams in general throughout my career. And the typical mentality, right, is if you're going to build a security operations team from scratch is, oh my gosh, I've got technology all over my enterprise. I've got to get telemetry. I've got to get data. I've got to get all this information so that my security analyst and my incident responders can look at all of that data and actively defend the enterprise. And so how do we do that? We centralize all the data so that they can defend the enterprise. And that's a very legacy mentality. And 2 years ago, before I had ever heard about Query, Andrew had come to me and pitched this idea of centralized access to decentralized data without actually centralizing it into a SIM where you're bringing all the data together. So basically leaving the data at rest where it sits and being able to query that data exactly where it sits in a one unified query language. And to me, that was an amazing phenomenon because all the things that we deal with when you stand up a security operations team where you've got 50 different query languages, 46 different tools that you've got to have access to, centralizing all your data and continuing to dish money out year over year over year to centralized SIM solutions struck me right at the core. And so when they asked me to come be CISO, I was already bought into the idea, but it was also something that I would have immediately bought as a CISO in previous companies if the technology had been available to me versus the tens of millions of dollars that I'd spent, on SIM technologies in the past. And so it was a no-brainer for me because I was personally vested in the mission of the company. And I think it's awesome that we're actually trying to break the mold away from traditional SIM technology.
Well, look, like you, I've been in security a long time, right? It's almost the pendulum swinging the other way. Instead of just trying to bring everything into one central brainiac, right, that is going to make sense, actionable intelligence of it, right? We start, analyzing the data at its place where it happens, and what needs to be taken care of can be sucked in or acted upon. What doesn't can be stored or not. And we both probably know a lot of SIM implementations where 7 figures were spent and they failed. Right?
Yeah.
They just became shelfware.
So
they still fail to this day, and I think that's one of the things that it floors me. It's still a failure.
Well, and now
probably a conversation for another
I was going to say, let's do this. You want to get into it? We got this.
No, I mean, you have these. Look, I remember when SIM meant like ArcSight, right? You had to wait 3 years to get an integration into ArcSight. Yeah. And then, you had the Q radars and all that. And then you got all these, let's call them, I run DevOps.com. You had all these kind of DevOps-enabled kind of SIMs that are, basically Splunk, taking all the data in and analyzing that with security data, and I'm not naming names or anything, but it's still the same old, right?
It is. And everybody keeps trying to build a better mousetrap, but it's the same model and it's the same
just a very complex, hard damn thing to do. And
This is why I'm excited for Query, because it's new and it's different and it's trying to fix the problem that SIM hasn't been able to fix for years.
And that we've spent a lot of friggin' money, but that's not why we're here.
That's not why we're here today, is it?
We'll talk about that another time. Let's talk a little, one of the things, I have a unique seat where I sit now, right? I don't have to push anyone's product. I don't have to push anyone's technology. I listen, I let people talk. So one of the things we hear a lot about is the cybersecurity shortage, right? We have 700,000 jobs open. We have 1 million jobs open. We will never train enough, And there's a disconnect, right? So I have kids who graduated college or just graduated last year or the year before. I can't tell you how many of their friends called me. Mr. Schimmel, I took cybersecurity in school. How do I get a job? I can't get a job. can't get a job. I don't have experience. They don't want to hire me. How can I get experience if I can't get a job? And you know, we're of an age, Neil, right? When I got into security, there was no cybersecurity in school. It was basically the poor schnook who didn't, who got volunteered into.
He was doing IT anyway.
Right, or he was the network guy doing routers. Hey, that's good.
Right.
You do routers, you'll do the firewall too.
That's right.
And that's how you got into security. So it's different, but it doesn't seem to solve, or it doesn't seem to be solving our problem. You have some views on it.
I do, and I'm incredibly passionate about this. The live stream that I mentioned when you asked me what I do, cyber insecurity, we speak to all walks of life of folks on a weekly basis. And the number one question I get asked on that show, the number one question that comes into my DMs, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, is, like you said, like you talk about with your kids, and the folks that you mentor, how do I get into cybersecurity? And what oftentimes happens is, they hear these stats about 700,000 to 2 million, I think globally, open recs for cybersecurity. But then they go and they take some courses, or they take a certification, or they get a degree, and then they go and apply, and then they can't get in. And they're like, Neil, you're a liar. Neil, that's a farce. There aren't 700,000 open recs because I'm not getting hired. And so I think there's a couple of problems when we talk about the talent shortage, and I've had an ungodly amount of recruiters come on stream, and I've put them in my hot seat to kind of talk to them about this talent shortage thing, and it kind of goes a couple of different ways, right? So first and foremost, there are tons of open recs.
There are
tons, but I think what happens is that the people who come out of these education programs are really only interested in hacking. I broad stroke that. I understand that that's probably not a fair broad stroke, but for the majority of them are only interested in hacking because we've done a fantastic job of glamorizing hacking and red teaming on the internet through TV shows and movies and things like that. And so they think that cybersecurity is hacking. And most of them want to come out of college and they want to go do a red team or a pen tester job. And they think that those 700,000 job openings are directly tied to pen testing and red teaming. And that's just not accurate whatsoever.
No.
A lot of that has to do with, how we've positioned cybersecurity amongst the job hunter. I want to flip that over. I want to leave that there because we could get into a whole diatribe about that, mentality in and of itself. The other side of the argument is the folks who are putting up these job recs are misinformed and out of touch with today's cybersecurity education programs. They're out of touch with today's learner. They're out of touch with today's people who are graduating high school. Because to your point, you said it exactly. When we were coming up, and we're the CISOs now, we're the SOC directors, we're the incident response directors, we're the pen testing directors, we're the managing partners at Big Fours. When we came up, cybersecurity was a bolt-on. You had to Google things. You had to learn them on your own. There were only 3 certification programs that existed out there that you could get any type of certification on when it came to cybersecurity. And so we've imparted what our beliefs are in terms of hiring onto the people that we're trying to hire. And that's just not the case. You said people can go to college now for cybersecurity, which they couldn't when you and I were coming up. But most people don't understand that. Most people don't understand the ed tech space has grown from those 3 vendors that we talked about before to literally 100 vendors that all provide the same level of training. I tell folks this all the time when they let me sit on my soapbox and talk about this is there is nothing special about Metasploit that SANS teaches you, that CompTIA teaches you, that EC Council teaches you, that OffSec teaches you.
It's all the same Metasploit, too.
It's all the same Metasploit, and you can learn it for free on YouTube.
No doubt. Today you can. Absolutely.
Yes.
Look.
JD was a friend, but here's the deal. The most successful security people I know were people who it was a state of mental being, right? They like to break things and then try to put it back together in a way that wouldn't be so easy to break.
Yeah.
A lot of security friends. That's why you go to security conferences, you see the lock picking and you see all these other kinds of things like that. They of my generation, they were into that.
Yeah.
Today, people don't just pick up Metasploit.
Yeah.
Right? No, they go to the class from Metasploit who somehow they hold up Metasploit it's like a break in case of emergency, but let me show you all of these other things. Now, but here's, I always wonder, is it a mismatch between what our schools are teaching these people and what industry wants? Right? So do you blame industry for having unrealistic requirements for these jobs? Do we blame the educators for not giving people the tools they need? Is it both?
I think we blame educators for different things, right? I'll bash on educators here in a little bit, but I definitely think our industry has failed people around us. Let's call a spade. We have a lot of egos in cybersecurity, and a lot of those egos from the old hats are what is gatekeeping a lot of folks from coming in. Oh, I got this cert and I didn't have Google to do it and I didn't have YouTube videos. So therefore you have to go through the same pain that I went through if you ever dare want to sit on a computer next to me. And that is a travesty. That is a travesty. But the same thing can be said for degrees. Degree requirements left and right are being dropped. We see big four companies dropping big four accounting companies who are the highest regulated after Sarbanes-Oxley that are out there are dropping degree requirements because they realize that it's a gatekeeping qualification that doesn't matter in cybersecurity. And so I think the industry has failed itself through the egos of some of the old dogs and old hats that are in this industry. And I think that right there is the number one problem, is to get out of your own head and realize that there are other ways to learn, other certifications, and other ways, to your point, to find that creative fire in the belly to figure out a solution that isn't tied to a degree or a cert or a path out there.
Let me give you 2 cents on that.
Go for it.
You don't mind. And I can see, this is going to be a long one. It's going to be, we have to invite you back. We'll continue this. Here's the deal in my mind. Security people, generally, the whole security industry suffers from imposter syndrome, right? Because we were always other. We weren't really part of the IT team, right? Those security people, they're weird friggin' people, and they're out here, right?
Yeah.
We weren't part of IT. We came under risk in some organizations, and that was the CFO, and that whole organization did not understand security people at all. Who's the weird dude in the kilt, right? And so you had that. So we were redhead stepchildren of many organizations. And though we may deny it because we're hot shit, ego-driven maniacs, we wanted to be accepted like the same way the ops people had IDLE and ITSM, or the dev people had their Scrum Masters, and whatever we wanted our certifications, and we built up CISSP. And I have a lot of my friend Wim Reams and Jennifer Manella and others who are on the board there, and chairman of the board for ISC Squared, and Stephen Northcutt at Sands was a great friend, and not that they were bad organizations, but have those certifications kind of outlived their usefulness here. What we wanted to do was build up to make this a real profession, just like the IT people had their certifications. We had ours. But at some point, it crossed the chasm and became certification for certification's sake.
100%.
I get that. Hey, I don't want to bring someone in here who doesn't know, his butt from his elbow. I get that, right? But I also get that you bring people in and they learn on the job, and if they're passionate about you, look, I'm an employer here, right? I run Techstrong. I will take passion over anything, any day of the week in an employee, because you can't teach passion.
But this is where I want to piggyback on that thread right there, because, when we talk about out of touch, CISOs, I think, have forgotten that when they got to sit in that chair, and when HR comes through and sets these unrealistic expectations, because HR shoulders a lot. I think we were to look at it, HR shoulders 65 to 75% of this blame, because they're trying to fit into some corporate monarchy structure of how job roles and descriptions are supposed to be defined and outlined, and they oftentimes copy IT. Case in point, and this is how we end up with 3 to 5 years of experience for an entry-level role requiring a CISSP. HR will come through and say, well, what do you need? Well, I need this. And it's usually an unrealistic set of expectations that come from the hiring manager. We'll get to that here in a little bit too. But they hand that off to HR, who says, well, if you need all of this, how much are you wanting to pay them? And so the hiring manager says, I want to pay them XXX, thousands of dollars. And HR says, well, cool. If you want to pay them that, they have to be in this pay band, which per our corporate structure says they have to have this many years of experience to be able to get that pay scale. And right there, there's no pushback that happens. There's no slap on the face to HR that says you are defining something for the industry that should not be defined that way, that has not been defined holistically by any level of organization, that is just not reality for how we conduct jobs in the cybersecurity space. But nobody fights HR for it. Yeah.
I run DevOps.com. That's one of our communities, right? One of our sites. Started that in 2014. DevOps really didn't become a thing till about 2012, right? In 2014, they were looking to hire DevOps people with 5 to 7 years experience, right? They weren't doing it. I mean, yes, HR has this kind of artificial scale, if you will. But a good CISO, and unfortunately I know a lot of CISOs who are not bad people, but it's about covering your ass too, right? Yeah, I didn't hire some raw kid who forgot to let, didn't watch, ingress and egress of information or something.
Well, but if you've got one kid watching all of ingress and egress, then I think you've got some fundamental problems.
Shame on you.
Yeah, you've got some process problems. And I literally just did an interview yesterday relative to this interview, where I talked about it's people, process, then technology, right? And so if you hire somebody with fire in their belly and then give them the keys to the kingdom and forget to tell them how to protect the keys to the kingdom, that's not a fault of who you hired.
Yeah, there's certainly that too. Look, I'm not pointing fingers again, but a large part of it is also that the whole CISO profession, if I could call it that, is still a relatively new role and varies from company to company, and there aren't a lot of clear. I mean, the great CISOs, the really good CISOs are great, but there's not a lot of,
gradient as you go down.
Like this. Yep.
I would argue cybersecurity as a whole is still relatively immature. Like we like to think that we're relatively immature when you compare us to other career fields.
I agree with you 100%. Neil, this was a 20-minute, 15-minute conversation. I'm afraid we're going to have you back on. We can talk about this. We can talk about a bunch of stuff. Love to have you on.
Absolutely.
But I got to kind of end it. I got people coming in the waiting room.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, real quick before we go, though, query.ai, that's the website, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can go check it out. You can follow Neil there, and your web and the Twitch.
Cyber insecurity on Twitch.
All right, go check that out as well. Neil, thanks a lot, man. We'll have you back on. Hey, we got to take a break here. No problem. We got to take a break here on Techstrong. We're going to be back in a minute with some more guests. Take care.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Techstrong TV. Our next guest today is Arjun Narayan. Arjun is the CEO, founder of a company called Materialize. Arjun, welcome to Techstrong TV.
Thank you so much, Alan. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So Arjun, let's start off with you. Right? As we said, you're CEO, founder, Materialize, but give people a little bit maybe of your life story.
Yeah, so I grew up in India. I came to the United States for college. I did a PhD in distributed systems and databases at the University of Pennsylvania, where sort of by accident in that I was really into computer science and fell in love with databases. By way of distributed systems, after which I took a job at a small Series A company at the time, Cockroach Labs, working on a large distributed database. And that was really my education in database go-to-market, in sort of building a database from scratch. all the way up to production readiness at massive scales. And after working at Cockroach for a little shy of 3 years, I founded Materialize to build a real-time database and follow a similar journey in a somewhat different market segment.
Absolutely. Look, Cockroach is a brand and product not unfamiliar to our audience. We've had the folks from Cockroach on many times here on Techstrong TV and on our various DevOps.com, Container Journal, etc. You don't meet a lot of people who fall in love with databases. What was it that made you fall in love?
What it really was the fact that there were multiple fields that were solving problems that were new to them, but which were old to the database community, and which the database community had already thought a lot about and come up with principled solutions to. And I got the feeling that I was reapplying multiple times things that had been learned a decade ago in databases. And I felt that that was a missed opportunity for the world, for people who would get the benefits of using databases to solve the problems that they have. Because most people, they don't want to build a query planner from scratch or a query optimizer from scratch. And sometimes people, unfortunately, have to dig in and do that because the databases of the day aren't fulfilling their needs. And I felt that that was an opportunity to take databases, make them a little bit more broadly appealing for modern day problems, so that people could really benefit and from reusing the best in breed solutions.
It's interesting. In some respects, no pun intended, the database gets no respect. Right? We're so busy talking about development and testing and security and networking and cloud and this and that. I'd say over the last 3 years, we've had a renaissance of, hey, it's about the data, stupid, right? Because really all of these things that we've built and do are about somehow gathering, analyzing, manipulating the data. It's the data that's the crown jewels. It's the data that's the payload, if you will, right? Of all that we do around, transformation and so much of our daily lives. And, look, I grew up in this industry where innovation and database wasn't necessarily words that went together, right? You had relation database query languages, maybe 15 years ago, we started getting NoSQL. And my goodness, because SQL became king of the castle, right? SQL databases, everyone had one. And then you got NoSQL databases. But in the last, let's call 5-7 years, we have seen an explosion of different style time series databases, for instance, graph databases, and another fantastic kind of, innovation. These widely distributed that we started with NoSQL, right? The Cassandras and this, but we've seen those proliferate. Cockroach is a great example, right? Another great example. What's unique about Materialize? What as I think we spoke about off camera, every founder, you got to be passionate to found a company because it's not easy, right? We all know that. Beyond your love for databases, what about what you're doing at Materialize you think is so unique and so that really gets your juices going?
Materialize is, and I believe, the first truly relational database that is built on top of stream processing primitives to give a really real-time experience for large-scale queries. And we're talking milliseconds, sub-millisecond, tens of millisecond latencies for large queries staying up to date that you can use directly in your production system. So imagine a query that's running in a Redshift or Snowflake data warehouse. If you could have that always up to date without changing any of that underlying SQL, you can say just take that exact same SQL, could be merging in, joining 10 different data sets, and you want to use that result of that query directly in production. Materialize is the database that lets you do that.
Excellent. So, real time. It sounds to me like the real time aspect here is kind of the game changer.
Yeah, and traditionally, many applications have used batch processing. It's been because traditionally stream processing has been too time intensive, costly. Operating Kafka clusters is difficult. It's usually what people shy away from, and it's the tool of last resort. But Materialize makes working with that real time data extremely simple because it's just the same SQL that people know and love. In fact, it's wire compatible with Postgres, which is a SQL that most of our viewers and listeners probably very familiar with. And that makes it very simple and cost effective, as easy as using a batch cloud data warehouse, and puts streaming and batch on the same level playing field in terms of complexity and difficulty. And at that point, why would you choose slow if you're getting the speed for essentially no additional complexity or cost?
Yep, I agree. Look, this move to real time, it's interesting. Like from where I sit, I kind of sit above the flow of the river, if you will. So I get to see trends in the stream, and the idea of we could capture everything. To me, Splunk is the great example of this, right? Splunk, man, what a great invention. What a great product that was. You could capture everything, right? Everything that has a log will grab, right? We could have all this data. What a great thing. People were like, oh my God. And then we began to realize, oh my God, how expensive is this not only to capture everything, but to store everything and to analyze and perform analysis on everything and how it relates to everything else. Who has the money for this? Right? So now we got to pick and choose what we want to store and analyze and act on and blah, blah. Well, why can't we do it real time? Oh, forget it. It's way too expensive, way too compute intensive.
And there's fundamental reasons why traditional databases struggle so much with real time, because fundamentally they are built on the model where you start from scratch every time a user asks a query. And if you think about most people who have large data sets, they tend to have large data sets as an accumulation of the historical data set that they've gathered over years. And if you ask that same question, say 10 seconds from now, right? We ask a question, we crunch the numbers, and we get an answer, and we do everything fancy, scale out, distributed, you name it, and we get you an answer in 5 seconds, right? And 10 seconds from now, we want to ask that question again in order to have an up-to-date answer. Like say something like dynamic pricing or real-time targeting or of an advertisement. Most of the data isn't changing, right? But the fact that the database has to start from scratch because of nonlinearities that it doesn't understand in the relationship between the input data and the answer, that's where the expense comes from, and that's what makes it so prohibitively expensive to use like a micro batch solution, which is just running a batch query over and over again. And the fundamental technological innovation that's in Materialize, which I came across during my PhD, was the fact that you could do everything fully incrementally. What that means is in the beginning, the first time you ask a query at Materialize, it's going to have to crunch everything just as any other database would, like that you can't break those laws of physics. The magic is the second time you ask a query, it only has to do work proportional to the amount of data that's changed between the last time you asked the question and what's changed. And that's really where you get not just the speed increase, but the cost savings as well.
So it's really about the diffs, just analyzing the diffs.
That's exactly right. In fact, the core technology that my co-founder, Frank McSherry, invented is called differential data flow. It's essentially running data flows over the diffs.
Excellent. All right. So I think we had a little breakthrough there. Now, let's apply this to business use cases. Give us some use cases for Materialize that, without naming names if you don't want to, that companies are using here to gain an edge.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts because our customers and our users do such amazing things, and it's always wonderful to see. The first thing I'll say is it's a general purpose SQL database in the cloud, right? So it is broadly applicable across all verticals and all use cases. The clusters of use that we see most often, one is people building applications or data-intensive applications using Materialize as their core database. Right? It's ideal for building new features or taking something that you've discovered is very valuable in your batch pipeline and deploying it into production. The second one is in machine learning serving. Right? So Materialize can be used as a real-time feature store so that you can use the stream processing and real-time data transformation to score your machine learning models online and also serve those models in production environments in real time. And third one is taking your analytics and making it more real time, right? So having a live dashboard makes you much more productive than having a dashboard that's updated once a day. That tends to be a common starting point for our users because that's such a pain point that they're already familiar with. They have the queries already spec'd out, but then they quickly move on to rolling Materialize into their core applications and deploying machine learning in production.
Got it. You know what? 15 minutes goes so quick here. Arjun, we got to give people, if they want to find out more, where do they go? What should they do?
So check out our website at materialize.com, where you can sign up. You can read our blog. I've written many of those blog posts myself. I think you'll like them. And you can sign up for early access as Materialize Cloud is going to be GA later this year. And I'd love for you to be one of the first ones to check it out.
Let's talk about that. So what's early access? What are we talking here? Is this, would you say, a late stage beta, or is it?
Yes.
Kind of help me develop it? Where are we?
So Materialize has paying customers in production today, right? But we have a new cloud service where it's a Snowflake-like experience, which is a fully managed hosted SaaS product, which is going to be generally available later this year, and you can sign up for early access to that experience on our website.
So it's available today. It's more of you could run this on your own.
That's correct.
Excellent. How, for the folks who maybe are looking to run it on their own, how is it packaged, if you will?
Materialize is source available, and you can download it, and there's links on our website to GitHub where you can check out the source, download, and run it as well.
That's cool, man. I love it.
Thank you.
You wouldn't happen to have the GitHub. Is it github.com/materialize or?
It's githubs.com/materializeinc/materialize.
Cool. Check it out. Arjun, thanks so much for coming on our show today. We appreciate it, man.
Keep up.
Thank you so much,
great
Alan.
work.
Come back
Thank you for
maybe
having.
when it goes GA, when the SaaS version goes GA. Let's get an update.
I'd love to come back. Thank you.
All righty. Materialize. You know what? Give the website. Is it materialize.com or?
.com.
Excellent. Go check it out. We're on Techstrong TV. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Techstrong TV segment. My guest this segment is another first-time guest here on Techstrong TV. I'm excited to have him on. His name is James Turgill. James is with Optiv, where he's the VP, and if I miss some of these, James, I apologize. Cyber risk and board relations.
Yes.
All right. Fantastic.
Yes.
Hey, James, welcome. I feel like we're at a meeting. Hi, my name's James. James, give us a little bit of background here. Well, obviously I gave your title with Optiv, but let's hear, you have quite a history, some experience in this industry. Share with our audience if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. Thanks for having me. So James Turgill, I'm, as you said, a vice president in our board relations. I've actually been with Optiv about a year and a half now. Prior to that, 3.5 years with Deloitte & Touche, running their cyber board relations program as well. Prior to that, 22 years with the FBI. So I came in the mid 90s, working, you name it, Colombian, Mexican, cartel, hardcore drug cases. Started my career working cyber in the FBI when in 2002, when the FBI really started to understand that cyber was going to be a part of everything that they did, every kind of case. I was the one sent out to our Cincinnati, Ohio field office to create a cyber task force out there. So I've been working cyber, since the inception of the program. Early botnet malware cases, you name it. Moved throughout my career, was the special agent in charge of our Arizona office during crisis situations like the Gabby Gifford shooting, the Fast and Furious ATF gun scandal, things like that. Also did a stint as the chief human capital officer when Director Mueller brought me back to run HR. But I ended my career as the executive assistant director for global IT and the FBI's chief information officer.
Wow. And I'm sure there are stories to be told here that would go way above our 15-minute timeline. But maybe we could catch you at an event or something and do a live interview a little longer. I'm sure there's a lot you could share.
Yeah, that'd be great.
James.
Yep. While we're at it, look, not everyone here in our audience is going to be familiar with Optiv. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what Optiv does?
Thanks. Yeah, so Optiv is, we are actually owned by KKR, a private equity firm. Optiv is the cybersecurity end-to-end solutions leader, right? There's nobody else. We are what we call a category of one because we not only have the ability to go out and we have some 400 different partners out there that actually we can resell the products to a particular client, but we do the integration, we do the applications, we can actually monitor it. So it is this whole, design, operate, and actually take it to the next level, which is what I do on the whole advisory piece, where I'm actually advising boards and audit committees every day about the value and buying down risk for the cybersecurity in money that they're spending and those types of investments.
So it sounds to me like you guys do everything from, look, we used to call it in the IT business a service integrator, right? Or a value add service integrator.
Yep.
But you guys also add sort of an active, almost like an MSSP role to it. You're actually managing security for some of the clients.
Absolutely.
So, it's cradle to grave kind of security.
It is. It's end to end.
You're rapid.
Yeah, we originally started as a value-added reseller, but we've expanded so much further than that with our services line and our integration, and now our, again, the ability to execute and really play at the board level.
For people who want to get more information about Optiv, James, where do you suggest they go?
Optiv.com.
Excellent. That's OPTIV.
All right. OPTIV.
We've got that out of the way, James. Let's dive in here. Wanted to talk today about, look, our audience has a lot of cyber folks in them who are very familiar with, let's call it Evil Inc. or whatever you want to call the bad guys system. Well, we also have a lot of people who aren't cyber experts. They're developers, they're ops folks, they're help desk, they're IT generalists, business, marketing, sales, and they may not be familiar with really what a full-featured ecosystem exists on, the black hat side of things, on the dark side of the internet, the underbelly here. And we're talking everything from like state-sponsored espionage, cyber terrorism, just creating chaos, to financial gain folks who are looking to basically steal money, whether it be through crypto, which is one of the latest, greatest kind of things, or good old-fashioned credit card pilfering, or identity theft and stuff like that, to all the way down to there's the cyber activists who want to make a statement, right? But what people don't realize is really the width and breadth of that whole ecosystem, of that whole evil link kind of thing that is responsible. Ransomware, of course, is the new stuff. Software, supply chains, there's a lot of attack vectors. James, give us I try to paint it, but you have a much better picture than I do.
Well, it is absolutely a business, Alan. And, I've worked this for, many, many years, couple of decades on the investigative side, and it has morphed throughout the last few years. Historically, it was the low-level organized crime groups. It has always been the nation states, right? China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. Certainly those organizations put a ton of money, and again, it's state sponsored. So their actual governments are paying to do this. But there's something in the middle that has morphed throughout the last few years, and what I call crowdsourced hacking. You now have organizations out there. The nation states are still doing what they're doing, and they're doing it at an alarming rate. But this whole concept of crowdsourced hacking is really, you've got individuals who are really good at a particular type of activity, right? So you'll have a group that is just good at doing the penetration. And then once they're done with that penetration, right, they hand it off to the next guy who's really good at moving laterally through a network and can pick a network apart. And what this does, it makes it very difficult for law enforcement, because now you've got individuals who don't know each other, right? You can't attribute one to the other, but they're really good at what they're doing. So they're infiltrating, they're handing off, they're moving through the network, right? A third one will come in and they'll give it back to the original client. They'll drop the payload, and now you're off and running on a ransomware or whatever it is. And so it has really morphed to these specialists in these areas. And then it then rolls back up to, again, you having nation states using these crowdsourced activities, but certainly the organized crime groups are proliferating in this area.
It's crazy. The age of specialists, right? And I think a lot of people, they still think of the kiddie scripters, as we used to call them, right? Those people are history. I mean, not that they're not out there that break things because they can. Yeah. But, it's such a sophisticated business today. And not only that, like, you could buy, I forgot the name of the term, but you could buy software that's meant to break into people's machines or turn machines into zombie. There are actually people selling software on the dark web, the same way you would buy software, on any exchange or above board, so to speak. And it really, it's a huge industry. Do you have, James, I know there's numbers out there. How big an industry is sort of Evil Inc., if you will?
Well, so it depends on how you look at it, but certainly the right now it is in the billions of dollars, right? With a billion with a B, billions of dollars in what they're making every year. And they've actually created storefronts, things like Alpha Bay, yep. Silk Road. I can actually go out right now on the dark web and some of these forums. I can buy 30 days of botnets, right? Those are the little zombie computers that have been converted, and tell the individual, right, store guy, I want to attack this set of IP addresses or this company or this group. I want to attack this group for 30 days. And they'll give you the malware, they'll loan you the malware, they'll give you the botnet, 30 days worth of botnet use, and then they'll let you know how it went. I can get that for $2,000 on the dark web right now.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. Now, as if things weren't bad enough, on the other side of the coin, we still seem to have this stigmatization around coming forward and saying, I was the victim. I was hacked. I was attacked. I suffered a loss. Who was the latest one that seemed to have got off? People were really bitching and moaning. Was it Uber? Had a huge breach. They didn't disclose till years later, and we just found out about it. And it seems they're not, being held accountable. as an industry, or as a rule of thumb, even though we've passed laws that say, hey, you got to disclose a breach, you got to let people know that their data is at risk, you got to provide credit monitoring, something. We've done a really lousy job, it seems,
Yes.
of enforcing that, of making that the norm.
Yeah, it's really difficult to understand. I mean, having worked these cases and sat with victims, for the last 2 decades, most of them are ill-equipped to understand the whole concept of cyber materiality, right? When does that breach become material? And then they also, there's a lot of misconceptions about the impact of sharing information, right? And what we were talking about earlier about the whole concept of collective defense, right? They believe that if they give the information away, if they let the world know that they've been attacked, right, they're giving away a competitive advantage, or they're placing their data privacy at risk, or, right, none of this is true, right? It's just their perception of that. And let's face it, there are, as you say, there's a number of rules and regulations. There's a brand new SEC rules that are about to come out and be promulgated about actually a 4-day rule, disclosure rule on, material cyber incidents and board education on cyber. So unfortunately, because the companies out there and the especially the publicly traded ones have refused to provide this kind of information, right? Now you got a legislative fix, right? Now the government's going to mandate it, and the SEC's got a pretty big stick.
Yeah. You know what, though? I don't want to be a doubting Thomas, but I've seen regulations before. And, it's not a crime if no one finds out.
Right.
So, and some people really have that. I think, we could regulate till the cows come home, but we've got to do a better job. Look, we've got to remove the stigma from being the victim or someone who is hacked at a corporate level as well as an individual. Yeah, there's some negligence. There are stupid cases. James, I'm sure you can fill books of stupid things companies have done and have gotten, paid the price. But, you could be the smartest organization, the smartest people on earth, and you'll still be a victim of a security incident, right? These things happen. It's part of doing business.
Yes.
And, we've got to remove the stigma around coming forward. And whether that's financially motivated, I'm afraid my share price is going to take a hit, or something like that.
Right.
Or, the fear of what the repercussions are. We've got to remove that. It has to be, just, this is the normal course of doing business. You were hit, you were the victim of a security incident, you disclose. Period. I mean, I look at responsible disclosure, right? When I first got into security many years ago, there was a fight around just responsible disclosure. You had cowboys who were finding vulnerabilities and 24 hours, fix it or I'm disclosing it. I want to get my name out there, right? And there was a lot of that nonsense. And you wind up creating 0 days and stuff. Today, we, for the most part, have a decent responsible disclosure kind of protocols that most researchers and companies follow.
Yeah.
We haven't
Absolutely.
seen that.
We haven't seen that with let's call it responsible disclosure of being of being hacked, of being a victim. Even with ransomware, as rampant as it is today,
Yes.
you still don't hear, all of a sudden, oh, this one's off, this website's down. Why is it down? Yeah, it's down for maintenance. Right? It's not down for maintenance. In today's world, we don't need to shut websites down for maintenance anymore. We're pretty good at that continuous delivery thing, right?
Right.
It's,
It
I don't
is,
get it.
one of the things that has always amazed me is when I would sit with actual victims. Right, when you're in the middle of a ransomware case, I would sit with the CIO or the CEO, and they absolutely would just not want to disclose any information. And I kept trying to get from the FBI standpoint. It's really important for your listeners to understand, if that one company is in the middle of that crisis, that let's say it's a ransomware attack, I guarantee you from decades of experience that that's not the only victim from that particular threat actor, right? There are hundreds of those being launched at the same time. And what I couldn't get through to these companies was, look, if you can just give me the base intelligence of how they got in there, right? So, how did they enter your system? How did they transmit and move through the network? What kind of TTPs were they using? Because guess what? If I, as a law enforcement, cyber investigator, can take that information, and then I can take the other 400 or 500 companies that I know are victims as well, that gives us a common operating picture and certainly better attribution, and I can go stop these people. But all the data, all the information of where it starts, unfortunately, is in those victim companies. And unless they're willing to, and now being forced to disclose it, I mean, that's how we get ahead of the threat.
Agreed. I agree. And that, you said something. They never attack just one company. I mean, sometimes if you're a target for nation state stuff, maybe. But, if you're the victim of ransomware, believe me, there's other victims out there. And the more we know collectively, the better we are. Here's another trend I see, James, and that is the whole cyber insurance, especially around ransomware, sort of offloading the dealing with this stuff to the insurance company. Let them negotiate with the ransomware. Let them worry about disclosure. What's your view on that? Good thing, bad thing? Depends.
Insurance is designed to not, to mitigate certain types of risk. Right. And so if you look at historically, cyber insurance came around, really in mass probably 10, 12 years ago. And now, it was fairly easy to get, and there wasn't a whole lot of, restrictions. Right now go out and try to get a cyber insurance policy. Right. There are, because of all the attacks out there, especially in the last 2-3 years, the ransomware hits. Right. The premiums have gone sky high. And there are a number of insurance companies who have decided to not play in the playground anymore because they've had too many losses, and it's something that it's very difficult from most people to understand. But it is the concept of, look, I'm trying to ensure the fact that I'm not going to get attacked by some other third party that I don't even know who they are or where they are, and so you're trying to insure against this. And it's odd to me that you should be doing all of the normal cyber hygiene, right? You should look at a framework like NIST or others. You should be doing all of those, like good things within your infrastructure and your ecosystem to secure it. Well, that's what now cyber insurance companies are requiring you to do before they'll even think about insuring you.
I mean, at some level, if that's what it takes to get you to, get on the stick here. Yeah. Maybe it's not a terrible thing. James, we're over our 15 minutes. I got to apologize to you, man. We talked a bit. Hey, it was a pleasure having you on. We invite you back on anytime you want to chat. Got some good stuff to talk about. Always a pleasure to talk, cyber, and we'd love to hear maybe some more stories at some point from yours. Yeah. No, hey, I love it. I'd love to be on again, and trust me, I got some really good cyber war stories. We'll do it. All right, man. Hey, James Turgill from Optiv here on Techstrong TV. We've got to take a break. We've got another great guest coming up.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
This is Techstrong TV.
All right, we are back. Techstrong TV live at RSA Conference here in San Francisco. I'm so very excited to be here. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm very excited about my next interview. I got three guys here who are going to blow your socks off with their technology. We've got Aaron Reinhardt, who is the CTO and co-founder at Verica, and Casey Rosenthal, who's the CEO and co-founder at Verica, and Tony De La Fuente, who is the lead at Prowler Pro, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in Spain.
I'm based in Spain, yep.
And these guys are in Austin, right?
Yeah.
I'm DC.
You're DC.
Yeah.
You're Austin.
I'm on the coast of Maine.
Maine.
Yeah, sorry. We're a remote
You're an
first
Austin company.
So, yeah.
Okay, now you've completely confused me. But thank you guys for all converging on San Francisco and having the conversation with me. It's so great to see you all. And I'm so excited to be really seeing everybody in person. I hope you guys are also. So.
Oh, yeah.
And so are we kicking this off by singing happy birthday? to
No,
you?
please don't.
No,
I already said no happy birthday.
Okay. All right.
So,
You don't want to hear me
sing. So let's get caught up. I mean, Verica's been around for a couple of years now. Definitely a company to watch when it launched, and you guys have been doing some really exciting things, but maybe not everybody knows about Verica. So who wants to give us an update on what you guys are, what you're doing?
Sure. We're a continuous verification company. So that's part of the evolution that we see in DevOps from CI to CD to now CV.
Yeah.
So deliver features fast, get those in front of customers quickly, and CV is don't break things while you're moving quickly. We've had a bunch of success over the past couple years, culminating in a pretty large deal with Dish Wireless. That we're allowed to talk about, fortunately, thanks to them. Dish expects to be the largest customer on AWS by the end of the year, launching the fourth wireless carrier, cellular wireless carrier in the US.
Wow.
And they chose Verica as their continuous verification solution. So we're pretty stoked about that. So we've got a module that verifies Kubernetes and a module that focuses on Kafka. And those are key parts of Dish's tech stack. And we've brought on a third module, an AWS security module in the form of Prowler, open source tool written by this guy here. So do you want to tell them about Prowler?
Yeah, sure. So when we met 2 years ago, probably, more or less, and I was writing Prowler. Prowler is a tool for AWS security. And the main goal is that I wanted to make it very easy to run by not only by security practitioners, but also by developers. And to give you, it gives you insights very easy to know what you have to fix and what you have to keep going. So the idea behind Prowler Pro is to take the best of Prowler, but giving the customers all the facilities and all the experience for a company. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to take care of the installation or a very easy installation. You have reports, you have alerts, and everything that it can be expected by an enterprise grade product. So that is what we are doing with Prowler Pro.
Okay.
So one of the main components of Prowler Pro is Prowler. Mm-hmm. So we are, of course, supporting the open source version and evolving the open source version. We are releasing a new version soon with a lot of new changes that the community are expecting. So that is the good point. So we are taking advantage of everything that we are doing for the community and the community for us.
Okay.
And also building the product on top of that. On top of that.
Very cool. Very cool. So how's the show for you guys so far? I mean, have you seen many, I hate the fact that I said 2 years ago at the last RSA, or maybe it was 3 years ago. No, it was 2 years. What's changed? I mean, COVID notwithstanding, how far has the technology progressed, and how much have you seen in the way of different approaches to technologies, or just advances in technologies? What's different for you guys?
You're looking at me for that answer? I guess I'm the nerd. Well, we're all nerds actually.
You have more RSA experience.
I have more RSA experience.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I'm Persimer. So.
there's some new tech out there that's kind of exciting. Obviously, I think what we do is exciting. But there's some good practical engineering kind of solutions I've seen, kind of like the WireGuard protocol. That has driven a lot of like the zero trust, a real technology into that space. So it's exciting. But I think the pandemic was also particularly successful for a lot of startups in the tech space because they got to focus, right? And less time flying around. So. No, I'm glad to be back here at RSA. I spend a lot of time at RSA. These guys know, just being with friends, right? Been seeing them all the time. So,
Yeah, I've one of the things that I've kind of come to realize is a lot of the technologies that were created right around the beginning of the pandemic to kind of help us get through the pandemic is here to stay. And we've got we're now using technology that was developed for the pandemic. In the way of facial recognition. I mean, obviously that wasn't developed for the pandemic, but it really became widespread use during the pandemic. A lot of that stuff is sticking around, and I wonder if that kind of signals a new wave of security and security technologies that maybe before would have had kind of a slower role, if you will, in adoption. So is that something you guys are saying?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I think time will tell if that stuff sticks around or not. But what we're excited about, in particular, seeing here are other software companies like us that have a developer first, practitioner first approach to their tooling.
Yeah.
That we can also kind of serve the executive layer and give them holistic pictures of security. But really, historically, I think security software has kind of trailed a bit in other infrastructure type software in terms of being practitioner led.
Right.
And that's the change that we're starting to see that kind of gets me jazzed.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually a very, very good point because security, the entire mindset of security these days seems to have really evolved from, these point solutions, protecting the perimeter, to really understanding that security should come like right at the beginning of any application development process and infrastructure process. And it is very, very heartening to see that a lot of organizations are really taking that approach and making it from the developer perspective and the practitioner perspective, and you can see it in a lot of the technologies that we're seeing on the show floor now and up at the DevSecOps days. Do you think that that's a trend that's going to continue?
I think shift left is interesting and it's important up to a point. But really, we've got to dissolve the wall between security and engineering completely. And that just means, like continuous security verification, right? Like that it's got to be part of the process, not just at the beginning, but, throughout maintenance and operations, because that's where most of the incidents are going to happen, right? It's not the day the software is launched. It's going to be at some point while it's being operated. So getting in early, sure, great. But what's the story for that to continue throughout the life cycle of the application?
Yeah, there's also shift left, shift right. The post-deployed world. We build all these things, right? But do they actually work, right? Like we need to. That's what really kind of where we're coming from. We need to continuously verify that, the things we built. We're not attacking them. We're not trying to pen test them. We're trying to verify what we built actually works the way we think it does. In our experience in kind of pioneering the chaos engineering space, Casey at Netflix, me at United Health Group. We saw that it's actually not the case most of the time. Our technologies almost never really work the way we built them. So
do you think that we keep hearing a lot about the software supply chain and the security issues that we've been seeing over the last couple of years? Do you think that that's going to change as these mindsets regarding shifting left and shifting right? Do you think that that's going to have an impact on the software the supply chain of the software?
I don't know. I mean, that could go either way.
Right.
I mean, really, it depends. I mean, it depends on how much is built in house, how much is purchased externally, and this movement in the past maybe 5 years towards large scale infrastructure being supported almost entirely by SaaS products. that has huge impact on software security provenance and data provenance and all of those things. So I think that's up in the air where value is even going to be delivered from within your own VPC or via service from external partners.
Yeah, what is clear is that the attack surface now is bigger than before.
Yeah.
A lot of companies are moving to the cloud, and that is a reality. So actually, we have seen also an increase of the usage of tools, security tools for the cloud, like Prowler. That is because all the companies are worried about that. So they need to see what is their attack surface, what are they exposing to the internet, not only through real things like a server exposed to the internet, but also through IAM, identity and access management, APIs, and all that stuff. So yeah, that is probably the more important point over the last 2 years. We have seen also, I don't know, but we have doubled the users of Prowler in the last 2 years because the companies are moving there and they need tools to fix their security issues and the exposure.
Yeah. It's the shift to the cloud. I mean, that dramatic shift to the cloud.
Yep.
The beginning of the pandemic certainly changed. I think it changed a lot of mindsets about security in general because all of a sudden it really was part of the conversation, and so the question has kind of become who should be leading that conversation about security in an organization these days. Do you guys ever see? I mean,
developers.
Awesome. I love that. Yes.
I'm the more pure security person, I guess, like developers.
Well, the point.
So it's always been an engineering problem. It's always been a facet, security is not there by default. It must be manifested by human beings, right? Like we have to create it, and the human beings creating it are the engineers.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great
So, well, before the cloud, we had engineers or network engineers to control the firewalls and all that stuff. Now, to control a firewall, you have to control an API. So, yeah, it's kind of a mix, right? Between network engineer with engineering or developing background. So, yeah, we are shifting that way.
So I get what you guys are saying. It's engineers are really, they've got to be driving that conversation. Shouldn't it have always been that way, though? Or has that just kind of become the way that it has to happen now?
You want to get philosophical?
Yeah, well, I know.
So, we inherited bureaucracy from the Industrial Revolution. So it's the way corporations are built is the people at the top make the decisions.
Sure.
And other people just do the work. So this is more like knowledge work, the way software engineering should be, right? The people doing the work should be making the decisions about how the work is done because they have the most context about the problem that they're trying to solve. So yeah, people higher up in the hierarchy at organizations now should be getting advice from the people actually solving the problems.
We always had kind of a separate security organization within the organization, a security department. Do you guys see that going away? Or do you think that we're always going to have the security guys?
I have an opinion on that. I was once asked this. It was I was the chief security architect at United Healthcare, but I was up on a stage and somebody asked me this question. It was like a 3-minute pause. I was like, "Oh, that's a really good question. Was the creation of the CISO role and the organization that followed on from that the right move? Right? Like we need accountability for these security problems. Right? We create a person." A role. That role, the people actually in the security organization, predominantly, not all the time, but can't actually do anything to affect the security. They tell an engineer they run a scan, use a tool to get a result. They say, "Hey, engineer, you need to fix this," and the engineer says, "No, it's already fixed." What do you mean? No, the tool says this, but the engineer says, "No, that tool is not actually correct. Look at the code," and the security person can't actually read the code. But we're seeing that change though. Like what Casey said, like Tony said, the more practitioner. We're seeing like more software competency come into the security space, which like as a software engineer, you can go from idea to product on your own because you write the code, right? So you kind of can understand how the sausage is made, per se. So
what I think about that is in terms of security. So we build security tools or security solutions for security people, and that is totally wrong in my opinion. So we have to build security for non-security people. So look at this event. This is a security event for security people. I think it makes no sense. I mean, I don't want to blame RSA, but what I mean is we have to build security by default stuff.
Yeah.
Not just, hey, let's do security stuff for security people because we are smart and we like to pretend smart. No, we have to pretend to make things secure out of the box. But I mean, it's probably that is to ask too much. But
do you think that is changing as well? I mean, when you think about all of the companies that are here now that are looking at security more from that practitioner perspective, we do have the DevSecOps days, and there are conversations happening about making security everybody's responsibility. So when you kind of change the mindset, obviously the technology changes along with it, and the approach to security changes. So, it's, I understand what you're saying about RSA being a security conference for security professionals, but if we're all in charge of security, if it's everybody's responsibility?
Yeah, it should be, but also it should be, so the vendors and providers, they should provide more secure stuff.
Yeah.
So if you, for example, if your solution shouldn't be exposed to the internet, why you are exposing it to the internet out of the box? Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be that way. So it's everybody's responsibility, of course, but there are some that have some more responsibility probably.
Yeah.
And the industry has to go that way, because the alternative is that governments are going to come in and regulate, and none of us want that.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. That's good stuff.
There's a level of candor too that really needs to happen. Is that we're not very good at this engineering thing. The world is not. We're pretty solid. But software's hard. Engineering, building things is hard, right? When you talk about the pandemic, brought on a new dependency, a renewed and stronger dependency on these technologies. But we're seeing more outages and more breaches than we ever seen, and that sticks going up.
Yeah.
Right. Why is that? Like Tony talked about the speed, scale, and complexity. So what we really need to do as an industry, right, is level set, right? Software engineers are no better. The security engineers, we're both not very good at what we do. We need to work better together. Right? That's why I think the DevSecOps movement has really done a lot to bring those two parties to the table.
Certainly helps to raise awareness of what, how these teams should be working together. So definitely. So what's next for you guys?
Prowler Pro, we're going to double down on that and invest a lot of resources in making Prowler Pro not only financial success for Verica, but the community aspect for Prowler has pretty much been carried on Tony's shoulders up to this point.
Yeah.
So we're going to help put some muscle into that to really expand the community and get some community support.
Yeah, actually, we currently have 235 checks, and we want to expand the number of checks for AWS for up to 300 or more in the next months. So we are working on that. We are working also on fixes and in new features for Prowler and Prowler Pro, new dashboards for Prowler Pro. And also the next version is going to support other languages to create a new standard to create checks, and eventually more providers, more than AWS.
Excellent. Well, I wish you guys the best of luck. It's always a pleasure catching up with the folks from Verica, Casey and Aaron and Tony. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Great
And
show
happy
so
birthday.
far. Well, thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. We have got lots more coming up here on Techstrong TV live at RSA. So please do stick around. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
CISO Talk, to hear how real-world CISOs are dealing with today's real-world issues. From enabling secure remote workers to accelerating secure cloud adoption, defending against a pandemic of security attacks and beyond, CISO Talk covers the cyber topics you want to learn about. With your hosts, Unisys CISO Matt Newfield and MediaOps CEO Alan Schimmel, featuring a revolving panel of CISO cyber experts. This is where CISOs talk. Join us on digitalanarchist.com and techstrong.tv.
Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Cody J. Brown here with some upcoming programs from Techstrong Learning. First, on Thursday, August 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern, we have Best Practices for Kubernetes Data Protection on AWS. In this program, we will uncover vulnerabilities inherent to containerized environments and provide practical guidance for implementing a backup and disaster recovery plan. We'll be hosting this over on Container Journal and is sponsored by Kasten by Veeam. That same day at 3 p.m. Eastern on DevOps.com, Tricentis will be hosting 10 steps to continuous performance testing in DevOps. This program will bring you field-tested best practices and how to get started with automated continuous testing. And finally, back on Container Journal, Monday, August 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern, Mike Bizard will be leading a discussion on container storage and the rise of stateful apps. Register today to learn the pros and cons of stateful versus stateless applications and determine which approach is best for you and your business. So that's all I've got for you right now, but we do have plenty of upcoming and on-demand programs for you over here at Techstrong Learning.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hi, this is Mike Rothman. Welcome to Techstrong TV. I am pleased to be here with Kate McLean from Lacework. I think, are you VP of Product Marketing or Director of Product Marketing?
Senior Director of Product Marketing. Yep, close enough. Something product marketing.
I just gave you a promotion. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Welcome to Techstrong TV, Kate. Why don't you can't make the assumption that our audience is familiar with Laceworks? Why don't you give us a little bit of information about the company, as well as maybe a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I run the product marketing function at Lacework. I've been in cybersecurity for over a decade now at a variety of companies like RSA, Cisco, and now Lacework. So I'm happy to continue to focus on this space because it's so exciting. Now, Lacework, for those that might not be, very familiar with Lacework, we were founded in 2015. And at the time and still today, our Lacework founders, they really set out to change cloud security forever with an automated and data-driven approach. So we know the cloud enables organizations to build, to innovate faster, to grow their business, but it also creates, a number of challenges. Scale, dynamic nature of cloud environments, cloud workloads creates a massive amount of noise. And security teams in particular, they're challenged to find the right insights or the critical deviations in their environments, in the midst of all of this noise, in the billions of signals that might be happening. So this challenge, not unique to any specific industry, every business really struggles to do it and to have the data that they need before it's too late. The other thing, teams, they're siloed. They work in different work streams, different tools. They have different priorities, and it often leads to inefficiencies when it comes to collaborating to respond, investigate, and resolve issues. So Lacework, we take an automated data-driven approach that enables us to ingest, process, analyze, contextualize these billions of signals related to that cloud activity, helping customers to identify unusual behavior, threats, vulnerabilities with more efficacy and ease of use than other tools. And then for investigations, we also provide browsable graphs, context-rich event cards. We're automatically correlating information across customers' events that could take hours, days, longer to piece it all together manually. And so we actually find that our customers are, significantly reducing their investigation time with us, and they're actually reporting significant reductions in their alert volume as well, 100-to-1 reductions, given that we're weeding out kind of the informational and low criticality alerts to focus on the most critical that they really need to find a way to resolve.
So tell me a little bit about, who is the typical user of your tool, right? Because, when you think about cloud, right, we've been able to democratize a lot of technology infrastructure. You have business users, folks call that shadow IT. I hate that, right? Because it's derogatory. The fact is, folks are, business users and business groups are starting to field their own IT organizations because they're not getting what they need out of central IT, right? Cloud gave them the ability to spin up a whole mess of stuff, right? Build out applications, really support innovation at, kind of, or technology-driven innovation at a scale that they couldn't, and at a velocity that they couldn't do that before, right? But now that kind of starts to get a little scary for security folks, right? What are they doing? I don't have visibility over that. I'm not really sure. They don't know what they're doing, right? I hear that a lot. They don't know what they're doing. So are the users of Lacework, they tend to be, business-oriented folks who have no idea what security is and why they should care about this stuff? Is it the centralized security folks that basically just say, listen, give me a hook, right? Let me connect into your cloud accounts and let me make sure that I've got, the visibility in that environment. So who tends to use your product?
Yes, it's a good question. I mean, I think it varies greatly. As you said, it also varies by size of company and likely industry. So, we work with some of the largest and smallest, most innovative companies out there really to secure that underlying technology. So it could be, an IT department. It could be a security department. It could be a platform team, a chief product officer we're working with, an engineer, a DevOps. We work with a variety of folks. But what we typically find is we start with security and then we end up engaging with the extended team because really everybody has a hand in securing cloud environments, cloud workloads, or if they don't, they're not preventing or addressing risks early enough, right? Because risks of misconfiguration, risks of vulnerability. The earlier, the easier you can address those, the less kind of problematic it becomes later on when they become costly issues or things that attackers can exploit when they're in active and production environments.
Yeah, you bet. And one of those things about kind of catching it earlier, right? The DevOps, Techstrong, big DevOps.com and Container Journal and not just our security practice, right? We talk a lot about shift left, right? How do we get closer to the code? How do we get closer to that? But it's the same kind of thing in cloud, right? And one of the things that's most interesting to me is that, in traditional on-prem infrastructure, an attack's attack, right? Somebody's on the outside or somebody's on the inside. They're trying to do something malicious. They're busting into your stuff. They're breaking your things. But in cloud, a misconfiguration because it could trigger something that's publicly accessible and you don't have other defenses, right? A misconfiguration can be just as damaging as an attack. Somebody who has no idea what they're doing, and there are a lot of them out there, right? They don't know what they're doing, right? They can cause this, huge issue on that front. So the ability of giving a lot of different folks visibility over what's happening in the environment and really not just looking for attack. And I know we're going to talk about detection in a second, but I don't want to go there quite yet. Because misconfiguration is such a huge problem in cloud. So you tell me a little bit about, I know that's where you guys started, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
And you use that term democratize, right? And so we say that make security information more accessible to teams, right? So we actually, our history is deep-seated in kind of agent-based workload protection or runtime protection. So we've been focused on getting all of the data really that a security team wants to dig into and understand what's happening. And then over time, we've expanded left, as you suggested, to offer more kind of low friction security, because that's something else. DevOps, builders, platform teams, they want to secure things, they want the protection, but with the least amount of friction, right? Because they're focused on building things faster, platform teams keeping the lights on, the infrastructure up and running. And so they want things that can help them, but it is not going to take something down, break something, slow their flow of innovation. So we started kind of workload protection, and then we moved left to offer capabilities around compliance reporting, kind of configuration management, vulnerability discovery and management. In November of last year, we acquired a company, Soluble, to offer IAC scanning. So as you said, kind of shifting left and giving developers and builders easy ways to check in as they're building to try to prevent the downstream effects of misconfiguration or vulnerabilities actually being, publicly facing and exploitable for attackers.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one thing, another thing that I think is kind of unique and interesting about your platform before we get into the news, and I promise I will get there, is I know you guys, at least you are basically built on top of Snowflake, right? So that, and for those of you not familiar, Snowflake's a managed data warehouse, I guess is the best way to put it, but it's a business analytics tool. You're pumping the security telemetry into, or all kinds of telemetry. I guess we shouldn't just restrict it to security telemetry. telemetry, but basically pulling all of the telemetry into Snowflake, building, and obviously you have your proprietary schemas and intelligence and all that kind of stuff. So can you just give us a little bit of a sense about what, kind of being built on this, truly innovative and modern data platform does, as opposed to the old flat files? I mean, if you were at Network Intelligence or, RSA Net Witness or any of those, like these big flat file things that we're trying to, give us information. And now we've got, kind of just such a powerful data platform underneath that. How's that, kind of opened up opportunities for us?
Yeah, as you said, so we're ingesting as much data as we can in every way possible with our agent or with our agent kind of scanning and scanners, right? So the more data we can get, the more we can learn from it. So we've got dozens of models that we're using to analyze the data. And we're ingesting all of the data, we're normalizing it. So we also work in a multi-cloud environment. So we know AWS, Google, Azure have different languages. We abstract all that information to get the data and get an understanding of what's happening, regardless of the environment you build in or the multiple environments that you build in. So ingesting data, normalizing it, and then applying, our models to look for deviation. So we're looking at each customer, building baselines for how their environment typically operates, and then looking for deviations from that typical or that norm. So, our models actually are pretty simple in what they're looking for when it comes to threats in particular. They're looking for, is this normal? Is this expected? Should this be happening? And if the answer is no, we're going to, again, alert on that critical deviation. Now we're finding the known bad stuff too, the crypto mining, the things that are tagged and have, associated domains associated with crypto mining, whatever that might be. We're identifying the known stuff, but more importantly, it's that unknown stuff that's kind of low and slow or elusive, that you haven't, that the world hasn't seen before, or is unique to your environment, that you really have a challenging time because of all of the signals and noise. So we're able to uniquely find that. And then, as you said, all the other stuff too. So not just, configuration information, all of that, all of the CloudTrail logs, the cloud audit logs, we're ingesting all of that and trying to get as much information there as well. All the failed API calls, the spikes in the compute, all of that could signal just weird, wacky, unusual behavior that's compromised, or maybe a misconfiguration, a glitch, or something that you want to stop. So we're trying to find any issues as early as possible by getting us as much data, normalizing it, and then applying our models.
Yeah, that's right. And the cloud, gives you scalability to be able to, at a much more effective cost point, gather all of that telemetry, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many calls I've taken from, customers that are bitching about, again, the vendor that, kind of jacks you up on an ingest-based, cost model to be named later, right? But nobody's ever said, oh, I'm really happy with their pricing. So cloud, I think, opens up a lot of opportunities there. But back to the anomaly detection piece of it. I know the news that you came here to talk about before I took you off on a variety of different detours is about a new, time series modeling capability that you have on the platform to supplement a lot of the anomaly detection there. So why don't we talk about that and a little bit of what you're doing on the incident response side as well? Because I guess that's why you're here, not to just, kind of kill.
No, but I'm happy to chat anything, because I do want to make one more point before I forget this, because you said something, ingestion cost, that made me think this, right? So we sometimes, replace tools that you might have suggested. Sometimes we also augment or complement them. So organizations will have something like a SIM tool for a variety of reasons. Compliance, they need the logs, right? But organizations will oftentimes put us in front and pre-process logs. So we're seeing our customers report up to 50% reduction of ingestion costs when it comes to SIM, because we're able to correlate a lot of that data that helps them. So they don't need to use that SIM tool for all the things, for all the querying of investigation and identification of threats too. So I didn't want to lose that thought before we move on to our exciting news. But our exciting news, like you said, so our improvements in detection and investigation. So as we've been talking about, data is gold, right? Like data is so important. And we're looking at using new and expanded data sets to find risks and threats earlier with our new enhancements, and also enable our customers to more effectively collaborate across their teams and their tools to respond faster. With our time series model, we're adding that to our existing behavioral engine, and we're detecting things like cryptojacking, compromised accounts earlier by using time as kind of what we're looking at, the new dimension. And then in terms of the investigation, we've revamped or enhanced our alerting experience. We now have a bi-directional sync with Jira and some interactive or collaborative experience in our alerting, which helps to speed kind of response, makes teams just streamlined investigation and operate smarter and faster. That's like the 30,000-foot view of the announcements, but I'm happy to kind of take it deeper as well and kind of go through the guts of what that all means.
Yeah, especially the integration with Jira, because you know, a lot of what we talked about, and especially something that's very pertinent to our audience, is kind of the intersection of DevOps and security. And I don't want to call it DevSecOps because that's a programmatic thing, right? But you know, Jira tends to be the tool that a lot of these DevOps teams use in order to track all the issues that are happening both on the dev and the ops side. So you know, really integrating with Jira, you know, gives the security folks, in effect, a seat at the table, right? That they're able to, you know, kind of view what's happening from, you know, kind of a defect that could impact security, or, you know, some type of operational challenge that could be some type of malicious activity there, so that they've got one place where they're handling all those issues. So was that the thinking behind the
Yeah, and so we actually have an existing Jira integration as well, but it's not bi-directional, but 50% or nearly 50% of our customers use our existing integration. But what it does today is if an event is flagged in our Lacework platform, we automatically open a ticket in Jira. And then an organization obviously gets that notification if that's their workflow tool of choice, right? But then let's say they close it in Jira. That's where it's broken. It doesn't automatically sync back. And so that requires somebody to close it out in Jira, then go back, open up the Lacework platform and close it out there as well. With this kind of bi-directional configurable sync, we're removing that tedious process of manually updating it in both. Right. So not only can you work within the work tool that is, or the workflow management tool that's your choice, it automatically sends the information back to us, so you don't have to think about it again, right? So bi-directional sync, you work where you want to with the team that you're used to working with, automatically sends the information back to our Lacework platform. So as you said, if DevOps is in Jira, automatically is going to send that information back to the Lacework platform if that's where, let's say, your security team is spending time.
Yeah, that's great. So, Kate, thanks for joining us on Techstrong TV today. Really appreciate the time. Appreciate to learn a lot more about Lacework, and as well as some of the new capabilities that you'll be rolling out mid-August, I guess, or is this stuff, you know, kind of right with SaaS, it can kind of happen at any time. So
yeah, so some of this stuff is the time series anomaly detection, which again is looking at anomalies based on volumes, spikes in volumes that deviate from your baseline. That's already generally available, actually, but the bi-directional sync with Jira is rolling out soon for sure.
Okay, that's fantastic. Appreciate the time, Kate. Again, Kate McLean, Senior Director of Product Marketing for Lacework. I'm Mike Rothman, and we will hand it back over.
Awesome, thank you.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Well, I have the great pleasure today of being joined by Caroline Wong. You've seen Caroline in other activities. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about some upcoming things that are happening with Caroline. Caroline is Chief Strategy Officer with Cobalt. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with you, Mitch.
It's a great pleasure. For the folks that may not know you, tell them a little bit about yourself and tell us a little about Cobalt.
My name is Caroline Wong. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Cobalt. Cobalt is a pen testing as a service company. I myself have been in the information security field since 2005, starting my career off leading security teams at eBay and Zynga. I host a podcast called Humans of InfoSec, and I teach cybersecurity courses on LinkedIn Learning, particularly the OWASP Top 10.
Those are all great topics. love all of it. We could talk about any of those. Well, you're speaking at some Techstrong events that are coming up, depending on when people watch this coming or have happened. Well, tell us a little bit about some of the topics that you're going to be talking about.
So one of them is about security testing at speed. It's actually called Move Fast and Don't Break Things. It's a panel featuring myself as well as a couple of really good friends of mine, Kim Jones with Intuit and Swati Joshi with Oracle. And we're talking about practical ways that software development folks and security practitioners can think about and also implement actionable behaviors in order to do security testing at speed. Our intention is to banish the myth that you cannot do security testing at speed.
Let's also get rid of the myth of, or at least stop perpetuating the myth of security the land of no, right? If we're operating at that kind of speed, we're part of the process, part of the software delivery flow, right?
Yes, we've got to collaborate. We've got to partner with our engineering teams. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
It's interesting. So you're doing this panel, I think, at Cloud Native Day, which is the 10th of August, right? Is that correct?
Yep. Coming up soon. And then again, depending on when viewers are watching this, may have been in the past. So that's number one. Another one that I've got is called Pen Testing at Scale. So organizations, enterprise organizations have thousands of software applications and historically have really struggled to do the pen testing across the entire application portfolio in order to get the comprehensive coverage and the periodic testing that's really needed to keep up with the pace of modern software development. So whereas the panel really focuses on the speed aspect, this one really focuses on the scale aspect. How do you do effective security testing at scale? And this one is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I actually start the talk by telling about years ago when I was doing BSIM assessments. BSIMM stands for Building Security in Maturity Model. That time frame for me was 2013 to 2016. And during that time frame, I found out after doing BSIMs for 36 plus organizations worldwide that organizations were only doing manual pen testing on 10% of their software portfolio.
That's scary. Even then, that's scary.
Even then, it's terrifying. And you think about how pervasive software is in all of our lives, and you think, gosh, are these folks only doing security testing for 10% of the software that I use? It's sort of terrifying. So things have gotten better, and my talk is about why have they gotten better, and what can organizations do to get it really where it needs to be. We're nowhere near where it needs to be.
I can imagine you could do 10 talks on that topic because there's several dimensions to it. One is you have applications that are still being delivered on a monthly, quarterly, whatever kind of basis, and others that if the organization is that mature in their kind of DevOps, maybe daily, maybe weekly, sometimes even more frequent than daily. So you have this frequency, this velocity that's all over the map that you're trying to do pen testing for. And then you're talking about whatever environment, from a legacy or mainframe application to a SOA to cloud native. That's so the complexity that we're dealing with, or the variables we're dealing with, seem really challenging.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I think, really things have changed in the last several years to enable folks to do this kind of thing at scale, which really was pretty impossible before, given teams' capacity for this sort of thing, as well as money. But things have shifted, and I'm thrilled to share my perspective on that.
Good. Looking forward to that. So that is, let's see, September 4th, I believe, is the. I'm sorry, AppSec, APISec, that's the conference you're doing this at?
Correct.
Okay, that's on September 13th. So it's good.
Cool. All right.
And then I think you're doing a third one, right?
Yeah, and then I've got a third one, and the third one is going to be really extra fun. So the third one is the 2021 OWASP Top 10, presented as a series of parenting analogies.
Okay. Everything I learned in kindergarten, I can use for my OWASP Top 10.
That's right.
Interesting. How did you come up with that as an idea?
Mostly, I think that the OWASP Top 10, the whole point is for education and awareness, and if I can tell a story about one of the security vulnerabilities in the OWASP Top 10, which not to me, and I know not to you, Mitch, but to some people, stuff about security vulnerabilities is boring. And I don't subscribe to that. But as a parent of young children myself, often when I think about security vulnerabilities, I actually can't help but immediately jump to a parenting analogy. And so I figured, why not put them together and share them in a little talk?
Well, certainly one of the traits that they share between security vulnerabilities and parenting children is it's constant change and you never know what to expect, right?
Yes. Yes, so many things. I thought about, if it's kind of parenting or, shortly before we started recording this, Mitch and I were just talking about our furry children, our furry four-legged dog children, for which there are also many applicable analogies, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that could be a whole nother session, right? Parenting your furry four-legged friends. Well, excellent. This last talk is part of our Cloud Container Security Summit on the October 4th. And by the way, you can go to techstrongevents.com and register for any of these events. If it's happened, it's also available on demand. You can also now go to Techstrong TV and those sessions will be available online right here on techstrong.tv. So easy way to check those out and go right to your session and see, or the others that you'd like to see as part of that. I'm curious, Caroline, what is sort of the theme, when you and I and others are doing speaking, right? You kind of get on these tracks of this is sort of what I'm talking about now. And you're always thinking about what the next thing or ideas might be coming. What would you describe as the theme for now that can represent with these topics? And what are you thinking about topics might be upcoming for you?
Yeah. For me, the themes are consistent. They are themes of optimism and hope. I think that, sometimes when we're talking about these security topics, it's easy to focus on what's really bleak or what's going wrong. But I really choose to focus on the partnership opportunities, the collaboration between the different teams that are making DevSecOps happen, and the super bright future that I believe that we have when it comes to cybersecurity. So themes of optimism and hope running throughout.
I concur with that. And actually at Cloud Native Day, I'm doing a panel, just to put in a plug for one I'm doing, actually with Mike Rothman with Techstrong Research, and also a gentleman named Donald Lutz, who's been a software architect for many large organizations. He's with Talos at IBM right now. It is interesting. It was just the three of us. And I hope folks will check that out too, because when you get two folks with very deep, many, many years, like yourself and myself, well, maybe me more because I'm a lot older than you are, but got the gray hair to show it. But when you get two experts together in what are complementary disciplines, but now need to be more than complementary, they kind of need to be integrated, intersecting and collaborating. It's interesting, the places of synergy, but also the places of agreement. Yeah. It isn't just, you got to secure your stuff and here's what you got to do, or you need to get out of my way because I need to deliver software. It's like, no, we're all in this together. And here's some things we can do, like cloud centers of excellence, or helping the organization, whether it's the platform engineering or the security engineering teams, to really kind of elevate all of our skills, because we all have to be there to deliver for the organization.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see your talk as well.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us. And look forward to, I'll definitely be checking out your sessions, and hope other folks will as well. And where can folks find out more about Cobalt and you, and maybe some of the activities you have going on there?
So folks can go to www.cobalt.io. Also, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I post content quite a lot. We also recently published a book, so you can Google the PTAS book by Caroline Wong, and that I'll give folks a little hint, is basically the long form version of my pen testing at scale talk.
Okay, interesting. Well, you're always welcome to come back on and talk more about your book if you want. And your podcast too. Tell us about the podcast.
So the podcast, I just happen to have a copy, so I just have to grab it and show it.
How did that happen?
Isn't that fun? And then actually the super silly thing, it's full of cartoons. So it's pretty small, but I wonder if you can see me as a cartoon. And then, really, really the best part of this book. I mean, it's exactly the right size to read on an airplane, full of cartoons. And then Humans of InfoSec, my favorite thing about working in this industry for almost 2 decades now is the people that I get to meet. I get to meet such passionate, smart, quirky, weird, amazing people. And on Humans of InfoSec, I talk to people about their careers, about their work. And, it's really intended to show a different side of security. We're always talking about the breaches and the vulnerabilities, and those are very important things to talk about. But this podcast really focuses on the people in the industry.
The technology doesn't happen by itself, right?
That's right.
It's all about people in the end. Well, Caroline, great to have you on again, and good luck with your talks, and we hope lots of folks will check that out.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mitch.
You bet.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, welcome back. We're at KubeCon. We are at Cloud Native Con, and talking to some fantastic people. New friend, new gentleman that I just met today, James Steele, who is a partner community advocate with Linode. We know Linode well, done a lot of work with you both in our research group as well as with Techstrong and the media side. Welcome. Hey, good to have you.
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you today.
Thank you for the Techstrong conversation.
Indeed.
So introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and tell us what your role is at Linode, and maybe a little bit about Linode too.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. So we have a very strong business selling sort of cloud hosting services direct to businesses and also to some consumers, gamers. Where Linode wants to put some focus is in the MSP space. There's a really good fit for an MSP and Linode services in terms of us being well priced, the personal level of support that an MSP is likely to need, and of course the performance as well. So for the little guy, there's a really good match-up with Linode services and MSPs. My job is to make sure that MSPs know we exist and to help them understand quite how to adopt our services and where we might fit in their portfolio.
And you have your background, you've worked in the MSP space both here and prior to Linode?
That's right. I've been working in the MSP space for around about 15 years now. So I was previously...
Okay, so you know it well.
Yeah, managing director at a VAR-focused distributor, working with MSPs as well, and previously vendors too. So yeah, understand the space, and I'm now just trying to match up the technology at Linode and the people with the MSPs.
Yeah, just as an aside, I know from my own experience, not everyone in an organization, a product company, service company necessarily understands the partner side of it and what's important to the partners, what they need to get out of it, what they need to be successful. And it's super important to have, not just an advocate, but someone that can connect those dots, put the right programs together. So MSPs thrive with you as a partner, not just you're on the list of products that we resell or we want you to sell us.
It's very much, yeah, I totally agree. It's very much with the MSP side of it. The reason I love it is it's a relationship thing. I get a real buzz out of talking to MSPs about their businesses, and they want someone that they can trust to work with, a dedicated point of contact and a company that's aligned with them and who actually gets what they're trying to do. We're not trying to just sell at them, we're trying to be in a partnership, and we understand that the buck stops with them when they're talking to customers. So it's really important that we are. It's a true partnership. It sounds a cliche, but it's a true partnership.
Yeah,
so,
it definitely is.
There's a lot of value in that.
Well, I'm curious, how, coming to this with your experience, how do you think about the MSP space within the cloud market, within the cloud service providers? We've done some research showing that while the large hyperscalers that we all know, you guys are thriving extremely well. And it isn't either or. Many people have a multi-pronged strategy. They may be in one or more hyperscalers. They're going with Linode and similar folks in your category. And collectively, you make up about the size of one of the hyperscalers of all the alternative providers. And it's growing. I mean, it's happening.
Yeah.
So where I'm going with all this is, I'm sure as your customers progress in their own use of Linode and working with you, there's certain things they're looking for that might be satisfied through a MSP kind of partnership and offering.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that we're not going to these guys and saying, hey, you're using AWS or Azure, drop that. We're the one size fits all option. We know where we fit, and we know that we are the simpler option for some workloads. So that's our message really, is that, okay, that's fine. A lot of the partners we work with are AWS partners as well, but they know that certain client requirements, they don't necessarily want that bloat, that depth of features that AWS provides. It's a fantastic platform, but Linode knows its space, and it's particularly well suited for SMBs, which is why obviously the MSP matchup is so strong.
Yeah, I'm sure that that means something too in our world. From what I know about Linode too is, there's a great deal of emphasis. I know it's really important to Linode, this relationship with your customers, and the kind of saying support is sort of an understatement of what it really is. The relationship that you have with your customers, and they expect differently from you than they're going to have from a hyperscaler, where they're kind of an account number to the
very much so
big guys.
Yeah.
No offense to the big guys, but I would imagine that's going to influence how you work with your MSP partners and help them understand how to work with your customers and their expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can really spend the time making sure that we give them, as much attention as they need during that onboarding process, during the pre-sales, post-sales. And as you say, it's not just about technical support, it's gone down, what's happening, because of course that never happens at Linode. Yeah. But it's the professional services as well.
Right, so no breaking news there, but yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So it's providing that whole wraparound service really. And as you say, as you rightly point out, it's the kind of regardless of size or spend, we're there for the little guy as well, and that's the important message, I suppose.
Well, and there's a lot of complexity in not just offerings in hyperscale clouds and the market as a whole. The business relationships of what people are doing in the cloud are getting complex. And one of the things from our research, it showed that people are concerned about their cloud provider, service providers being competitors to them, because oftentimes they start out as, hey, you're a great partner, and then suddenly they're doing that service themselves and competing with you. And it's one of the things I think important that I found anyway from our data, looking at like an alternative cloud provider, is I want a little cleaner relationships. I want to make sure that you're not going to be in my business tomorrow.
Anyone else talking to that MSP is potentially a competitor, right? I mean, it's they need to own that relationship, and they need to have trust in any partner that they're working with. So I totally agree. If it's someone that could potentially come in and offer the same services or take business away, then that's a real problem. So I think for MSPs, they need to be partnering with particularly with like sort of developers to provide. So they're providing the platform, working with developers to provide the solutions for their SMB clients, and hopefully working with providers who get that importance of the relationship, and that's where we fit in.
How do you measure the success of a partnership and MSP program? Obviously, revenue is an important factor. What other things are you looking for to know, hey, we're being very successful at this, if we're doing the right things to build this ecosystem of partners?
I think in terms of sort of metrics, I mean, we look at, obviously, I mean, we are looking at, kind of the lifetime value. We want to build, partnerships where it's not just a kind of spin up one server and that's it. We build a long-term, lifetime value to the partner. But we're also, the enablement is a big focus. So it's bringing the training elements into it. So making sure that we're looking at, okay, how many people have done gone through our onboarding process, both sales and technical, bringing that side of their knowledge up. So really, I see, if you can enable the partners, provide them with the education, it kind of, and then some support, it kind of, the results follow. So it's really the enablement piece I see is probably the most important. Does that answer your question? Or
yeah, no, I think so. It's more than onboarding, right? It's like that customer success.
They call it enablement. I don't like these buzzwords, but it's the kind of, do you know what you're doing with us?
I think that's the right word, but it's about the outcome, not the getting them on your product and, okay, good luck. Hope you're successful using our stuff, and we'll see if you renew at the end of the quarter or end of the year. No, you don't want to be there, right? You want to make sure people are engaged, using, connected, then there's stickiness to your offering, right?
And I think the other element is making sure that you give them the time up front when you're having that initial conversation, as actually understand your business. Okay, so who are you serving? What are you trying to do? What are your, we don't go into too much of the fluffy stuff in terms of values, but we get an idea of what they're trying to achieve and really understand what level of help. Because some people will know exactly what they're doing, don't need so much hand holding, but we're there with potentially there's some complex technical solutions to be able to say, right, we've got somebody on hand in pre-sales who really knows their stuff, who can walk you through a cloud migration or whatever the scenario might be. It's really important to understand them first and then work out what they need and provide that help, I think.
Great. Now, how long have you been with Linode? It's been like 6 months or something?
Yeah, I'm pretty fresh.
Yeah. Well, in some companies, that's an old timer, but these days it's hard to know,
in the tech
right?
space, I think you're right. Yeah,
it kind of is. Why go to Linode? What was it that attracted you to that opportunity?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm passionate about the MSP thing. I've been doing that for a long time. And actually a colleague introduced me, Richard Tubb in the MSP space, he told me about Linode, and the Linode values and where they're strong in terms of that sort of people focus, the price, the performance, that alternative offering. I could just see the perfect match-up for MSPs. So I just thought, right, okay, I can see an opportunity here for me to really make some inroads. And they're growing so fast that it's a case of just a little bit of attention in this area and understanding, some love and attention for the MSP space, and I think we'll achieve good results. So
and if folks don't know, Linode's now part of the greater Akamai.
You picked up on that,
world.
That's good, yeah.
And we've had conversations about that. And I think I'll use a buzzword, there's sort of enlightened acquisitions, I think, happening now where people are like, leave Linode alone, let them do what they do. We're not acquiring them to suck in their technology and board the company and then destroy it all later. In 3 years, it's all gone. These folks are doing something right. That's why we bought them. Yes, it's technology, but it's more than that. It's the business, the brand, it's the relationship. And let's build on that and maybe complement it. I'm kind of giving the rosy picture. It's not always roses, but that seems to be more the approach that Akamai and Linode are taking.
That's the impression that I get too, and it's a really exciting opportunity, and particularly for me. I mean, I work heavily, obviously, in the North American region, but elsewhere, having the Akamai brand it's instantly recognizable. You've got the network there. It's the network, the edge, the compute combination is really exciting. Linode have done an absolutely fantastic job to build the business to where it is now. But I think that there's a lot of exciting potential with Akamai on board as well. It works both ways.
It seems like there's good synergy too, because Linode, I used to use Linode a long time ago when I was running an IT organization.
Oh, very good.
And they were known primarily as the developers hosting the developers cloud, catering to developers. Well, I think that's all still true. That market's evolved, and enterprise, mid-level. You're going after all the business now, and I would imagine an Akamai also helps you in that space because even more credibility. Not that you weren't before, but you're part of a bigger ecosystem and sustaining what you do.
Definitely. I mean, obviously they have a very much enterprise focus. We're SMB. With combined technologies, there does seem like we can service that kind of middle segment where there is, definitely demand for both sides, both services. So yeah.
I would think partners, that'd be attractive too. Great.
Very much so. And it's funny, being at the show, over the last couple of days, it's an amazing number of people say, oh, hey, I'm using Linode, and oh, hang on. Right, okay, so I didn't pick up on the
What's
PR.
That logo up there?
Yeah, and actually I'm a customer of both, or I've started conversations with both, and so that's kind of just reaffirms that, okay, it makes sense what we're doing here and combining the two businesses.
Good. Well, we look forward to, seeing great things happen in the MSP program at Linode.
Thank you.
Not to setting any expectations. Other people will do that for you. You don't need me doing that, but I'm sure great things will happen, and appreciate you spending some time with us.
Sure.
And sharing that MSP perspective. We don't always talk about that, and that is just as important as anything else we talk about, because that's how business gets done. So
Absolutely, and hopefully we can do more of this in the future. But thank you. No, it's been really enjoyable talking to you, and thank you for the support. Obviously, we work closely together. That's great, and
happy to do that. Some interesting research projects. So check out techstrongresearch.com. We have a new report that we just issued, and there's some interesting webinars and things that we've done with Linode, both as Techstrong and then the analyst part of the company. So linode.com is where folks can find out more.
We have our $100 free credit offer if you want to just come along and just try a service. You can use it for 60 days for $100. Get $100 of credit for the service if you're ready. If not, you can pick up the phone and speak to one of us about a solution and let us know what you're working on and how we can help.
Yeah, I think you've been. My experience is pretty frictionless to work with. So
hopefully that
good
continues.
stuff.
Yeah.
All right, James Steele, who's head of the partner program at Linode. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you joining us too. As I said, stay tuned, same bat station, bat channel. We'll be back with some more great interviews like we had with James here on Techstrong TV at KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Joe Payne, who's CEO for Code 42, and we're talking about cybersecurity budgets. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Cybersecurity budgets were a concern before the downturn in the economy. People were getting worried about security was becoming a higher percentage of the overall IT spend. It's hard to justify that because it's proving a negative, right? Nobody really knows whether or not they're getting value because it's something that may not have happened. So it's hard to measure. Now we're kind of looking at a world where people are trying to rein in their budgets a little bit because of the downturn. What do you think the impact of that is going to be on cybersecurity spending, and what should people be thinking about?
Well, I think some context is in order. I know that if you've been around the block in business for a while, you're thinking, wow, these IT budgets keep getting bigger, and therefore the security budgets to protect it all keeps getting bigger. But those same budgets that are getting bigger are also making us enormously more productive. So as a society, and we get a lot more productivity out of everybody who works for our companies these days than we used to because of IT. So I don't think IT budgets are going to start shrinking all of a sudden. I think those companies that have digitized their business processes and digitized their businesses, because just about everybody, are the ones that are seeing, that are winning their markets. So specifically on cybersecurity, what I'm hearing from CISOs when I talk to them is they actually think after years of incredible expansion of their budgets over the last few years, and listen, expansion for good reason, not just because people want to have more tools and more capability, but expansion because all of our most important information is now digital, and it's if everything we make in companies or can be put into some form of PDF or some form of digital document. And so if you're going to protect your crown jewels, you need to spend money to do that. But what the CISOs are telling me is they expect cyber budgets this year to be flat for the first time in a long time. And they do expect their IT budgets to actually shrink a little bit in this economy, but they're like, hey, our mandate is pretty clear. We don't expect our budgets to actually shrink. Now, what that means, what's interesting for cybersecurity vendors out there, folks like Code 42 that sell to CISOs, is you really have to make sure that you are building products that maybe take multiple products that are out there, capabilities are out there, and squeeze them into a single product so you can save organizations money. And I hear consistently from CISOs that they're looking to reduce the number of tools that they have and reduce not only the spend in doing that, but in the complexity that they have out there.
Do you think, therefore, we're looking at a wave of consolidation of capabilities because things that were once standalone products become features and platforms, and we will see this kind of rush to deliver more things maybe as a cloud service where things are features rather than a bunch of stuff that I buy and then try to integrate myself?
My answer to that is a wholehearted yes. I absolutely think that is what's happening. And I'll give you an example from my world at Code 42. Code 42 does something called insider risk management. We basically look for the data that's leaking out of your organization from your insiders. And in our space, there's a bunch of stand-up individual tools. There's something called a UEBA, which measures user and entity behavior analysis. There's something called a CASB, which is basically cloud security. It's cloud access service broker. And a CASB looks at, how data might leave via your cloud applications. And then there's the old tried and true DLP, which has been around for like 20 years. And in our space, what's happened is vendors like Code 42, we've taken all three of those capabilities and combined them into one product, which is much more efficient. It's actually much more effective too. It's not just a better spend, but it's actually a better product too. So we're absolutely seeing that kind of thing happen throughout security. And we're going to see, I think, a lot of security people and CISOs look, hey, can I combine these two categories that are sort of adjacent and buy one product from one vendor and save money that way?
Do you think that the way we think about IT spending, though, needs to change? Historically, it was always kind of like IT spending is a percentage of total revenue, and security would, of course, be a percentage of that. But as we move forward, if the whole business is dependent upon IT and we're seeing more digitization, does the amount of spending on IT should no longer maybe be tied to what the actual sales revenue number is, and there's something that's more realistically reflects the actual investment required?
Well, I'm going to answer that question with two hats on. So the first hat is, as a security vendor, I would say, well, of course, you shouldn't constrict yourself based on your revenue. You want to be the safest possible. But I'm also the CEO of a company, and I understand how you make these decisions. And you do need benchmarks. You do need norms. And so I think we're always going to be looking at percentages of revenues as benchmarks. But, the percentages are pretty wide. The last number that I saw on Gartner, on Deloitte. Deloitte said it's like 6 to 14% of IT budget should be spent on cybersecurity. Now, that's a big range. I think it depends on your type of business. Like, should you be spending 15% of your revenue or 20% of your IT revenue on security? Or should you be spending 6%? If you are a manufacturer of widgets that are not complex and not proprietary, then you're going to spend a lot less money on cybersecurity. But if you're building sort of the next great car as a manufacturer, you need to protect your intellectual property. That's the difference between winning and losing your business. So you're going to spend more on cybersecurity. But as a CEO, I'm always going to want to have those benchmarks. I'm going to want to say, but how do we benchmark versus others, and what are they spending on as a percent of revenue? So I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Do you think that the bad guys are at all inconvenienced by these trivial economic issues, or are they just investing more and more all the time?
Well, there's no question the bad guys are investing more and more. But the thing we haven't talked about yet is when the economy gets bad, the bad guys also, there's more bad guys because people are out of a job or, they're looking for easier money. When the economy's good and there's jobs for everybody, fewer people are messing around, trying to break the law in order to make economic gain. And so we will see a surge in cybercrime, I think, in the next few years if we have a recession, because there's just more people with more time and more willingness to stretch the law or break the law in order to get economic gain and economic benefit.
What is your sense of how much data is being lost because of ransomware versus just being lost in general because credentials are stolen? I mean, there's a lot of focus on ransomware these days, but it seems to me that there's plenty of other ways people wind up losing data.
It's interesting. I think ransomware is the press loves ransomware. Everybody loves a good ransom story because, it's dramatic. But when I talk to CISOs at, Fortune 500 companies, they don't talk much about ransomware. They don't sit around and worry about ransomware. That is a concern at public universities. That is a concern at hospitals, at people that maybe don't have as sophisticated an IT organization, where we see an incredible amount of data loss. In fact, our data shows that over half of your data loss events today actually come from insiders. They come from employees and contractors. And specifically, employees are taking data with them when they change jobs. And what's happened is over the last few years, as our technology has dramatically changed in the last few years. We have tools like Dropbox and Box and OneDrive and G Drive, and we have things like Slack. And all of these communication and collaboration tools are really effective at helping us be more productive. But they also all have personal versions, which make it just as easy while I'm at work to slide a document across my desktop and put it in my personal Dropbox account, or download something from Salesforce.com, maybe my customer list or my pipeline, and put it into my Gmail account so that I can take it to my next job. And these capabilities and the emergence of being able to work from anywhere, where all those network security tools that used to protect us don't protect us anymore, it's really driven a dramatic increase in employee theft. And most employees would say, well, it's not really theft because I created those documents. I created that source code. I left a copy with the company. And so I just took it because I'm very proud of that source code. And also we find that most companies aren't watching the store. They're not watching for this. We did a survey, and 89% of respondents told us that no one asked them on the way out of their last job, did you take any data? Everybody got their computer collected. Everybody got their badge collected. So, we're solving yesterday's problems, which is, hey, can they get into the office? And we're not solving the problem is, hey, did you take all your data, that via Dropbox? Did you take your source code? Did you take your customer list? Did you take our employee list? We don't even ask. So it's a real problem out there. And that's the problem that Code 42 is tackling. And so we're really passionate about it.
A lot of the organizations don't seem to even know where their data is. Somebody copied something, stuck it up in the cloud. So how am I supposed to secure something when I don't even have a clue where it is?
I think the thing is, we do hear that all the time from people. It's like, it's a problem I can't solve, but that's not true. It is a solvable problem. I think, we use this defined term of trust. You have trusted locations for data and untrusted locations. And so when your employees move data to untrusted locations, in other words, to their own personal laptop, to their own personal, box or G Drive or Gmail, all that can be tracked. And so it's not overly complex to track it. There are companies like Code 42 that do this. And so it's a real problem that people need to take on. I think that market has changed. The old way of doing that was to say, well, let's tag all our really critical data. Let's make sure we put confidential on there, and then we can track it around the organization. That doesn't work anymore, because when insiders take data, if it's tagged confidential, they just copy the text and move it to another document, or they know how to get around all that. So, because that's their data. And so you need new tools and a new modern approach. The other thing that you really need is education. And so it's an interesting thing that's happening in the security education market. We talked about budgets. One of the things that people say, well, do we need more education for our teams? Do we need, more? And the answer to that is no. We don't actually need more education. People aren't paying attention to the education that we're already doing. So shoving more down their throats isn't helping. We've taken a wholly different approach. We think what people need is responsive education, responsive to something they did or responsive to a change in status. So here's a specific example. Let's say somebody puts a document into Gmail and they say, okay, this is some source code. I'm going to put it into Gmail. And we might send them a video right when that happens automatically that says, hey, wait a second, we don't use our personal Gmails for email at our company. And we give them sort of a 30-second video. Maybe it assumes positive intent. And then we watch those people in a watch list to make sure that they're not exfiltrating lots of other things going forward. Or another example of responsive is, let's say somebody publicly shares a document. Most people publicly share a document in OneDrive or G Drive by accident. They didn't do it on purpose. And so we created a video that was like, hey, did you mean to do that? And by the way, here's how to fix that and to change that sharing permission. All done in a sort of, again, a very positive kind of approach. That kind of security education does two things. One, it teaches them that you're, what to do and what not to do. But more importantly, it actually shows them that the security team is watching the store. And that in and of itself has a huge effect on reducing the amount of documents that people take. And then the final example on that is when people change status. So the other thing is, we're all forced to watch our security videos once a year, and we all just try to go through as fast as it'll let us and then answer the quiz at the end. Nobody pays attention. Nobody changes their behavior. But let's say you have a change in status at your job. For example, you're a new employee. We might send you a video that says, hey, here's our expectations. And one of them is that you don't bring data in from your old job. That's a very specific thing that can create risk for us. Or maybe you are a departing employee. You just quit. And we send you a video that reminds you that you can't take your data with you, not your source code if you're a software engineer, or maybe a version of the video for a salesperson that says you can't take your Salesforce stuff. We're paying attention to that. Those kind of things have a big impact. And that's a whole change in how you're doing security education. And we think it's going to be a big part of the security market in the coming years.
All right. So what's the one thing you wish customers would know or think about before they went down this path and started, losing track of their data? But what's the one mistake you see them doing over and over again?
I think the biggest mistake people do is what we call the ostrich defense. They say, wait, are you telling me you think that the biggest area of exfiltration in my company is my own employees? And the answer is yes, we do. And so they say, I can't deal with that. I'm not paid to do that. That's an HR problem. I don't want to actually have to talk to people as a security engineer. I prefer to put in controls, and I prefer to put in tools, but I don't want to actually have hard conversations with people. So the number one mistake that people make is they just don't deal with the problem. And so, there's a lot of education going on out there to change that. I want to add the number two mistake, because the number two mistake is more painful, which is the number two mistake is they treat the employees like hackers. So when you get a hacker in your organization, the first thing you do as a security person is hit that person, machine connection with a sledgehammer. So you grab a sledgehammer and you isolate that device, you interrogate that user if it's a compromised user or whatever, and you treat it like this is a really bad thing. That's what you need to do from an external attack. You can't do that with your employees. We see employees all the time who are just using tools like Dropbox and Gmail just because they had trouble that day getting onto the network, and they're trying to do their job, and they're our colleagues. And so the whole approach on how you deal with insiders has to be very, very different. You have to take what we call empathetic investigations, where you have to say, hey, what were you trying to do there? Explain to me what you're doing. And I would say 7 out of 10 times, you get a response from the user that's like, well, I was trying to do this because my job. And they go, okay, well, we don't do that. That creates a lot of risk for us. We need to do this. Now, 3 out of 10 times, they're malicious. They did it on purpose. They knew what they were doing. They're not going to admit that. But then we figure that out very quickly. And then you can isolate those people and send them on their way.
All right. Well, once again, we have discovered that the enemy is us. Joe, thanks for being on the show.
I love being here. Thanks for having me. Take care. Right.
Back to you guys in the studio.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Karen Crowley, who's Director of Product Solutions for Deep Instinct, and we're talking about deep learning algorithms and cybersecurity and all kinds of fun stuff like that. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure to be here today.
You guys just published a report in collaboration with MIT, kind of explaining where deep learning algorithms kind of fit in the equation and how they work and maybe how much faith we can have in those things. But it's not clear to me that everybody understands the difference between deep and machine learning algorithms. There, what is the difference and what should people be thinking about here?
Sure. So I think one, to start to explain the difference, I'll take a step back into some of the challenges in cybersecurity, right? In that we're very reactive to threats that are coming through. And, the threat actors are being too successful, right? So years ago, we started with AV, and you needed rules and signatures to detect threats. And it came to, it worked for a while, right? But we couldn't really prevent threats. So they started to add some AI and automation, but we're still only able to stop known threats. Then we sort of entered this assume breach era, right? Where everyone said you have to assume the attacker's inside because we can't prevent them. Look for indicators of compromise, look for anomalous behavior, that something's happening out of the norm. And that's when vendors started to adopt machine learning, and it got faster. We were able to find things faster and detect things faster. But the attackers are also getting faster, and we're still getting hit far too often. So one of the troubles with machine learning is that it's still very reactive. You're reacting to something that's already taking place on your network, right? The threat has started to execute, and you're looking for behaviors that shouldn't be happening. So what deep learning is able to do in that context is come in and bring back sort of that prevention first mindset, because deep learning is able to basically look at larger data sets and train on a much larger set of data. It's able to create more context, and then it's able to allow us with a deep learning based cybersecurity solution to stop threats faster. So in a very basic premise, it allows us to be more proactive when we're talking about cybersecurity. There's definitely some nuances and some differences in like I mentioned, how machine learning is trained versus deep learning is trained. Deep learning requires, or machine learning itself can only train on 1 to 2% of the data, where deep learning can train on 100% of raw data. So it can ingest all the data and therefore make those larger contexts and make those connections that you can't make with machine learning. Deep learning also allows you to be a little more autonomous because of the context of the data. It's able to start predicting and preventing threats, where it can make some decisions on its own about what's good and what's bad. Deep learning training happens on good data and bad data, so that you're teaching it what's good as well as what's bad. We're not just saying here's a bad behavior, here's something that's bad that's already happened on the network, look for this. We're saying here's what good looks like and here's what bad looks like, and making those connections. And then lastly, just enable the types of files that it can to look at. Deep learning is able to infer more about different file types just automatically than machine learning. So that was kind of a lot. So I'll let you go back and ask more questions.
All right. Well, we're still on the subject of computer science here. So what exactly is in this MIT paper, and what are the high points, and what should people take away from it?
Sure. So we went to MIT because, they're obviously very well respected. It's a very complex topic, as you can see. AI is being used everywhere in every industry today, because humans just can't keep up with the volume that we're experiencing today. So we went to MIT. We thought they were the perfect partner to sort of try to come and clarify, this topic. And, what they do is take a look in this paper, sort of describe what machine learning is, describe what deep learning is in the context of, artificial intelligence, and give out that those benefits of what deep learning is able to do for you.
Seems to me that I think our expectations of how fast AI is going to come and solve our security issues are a little out of whack. I think it takes a while for these things to learn the environment, to learn what's going on. So do you think people need to have a little more patience when it comes to AI and cybersecurity? Because you hear a lot of people complaining about how something, doesn't work or has too many false positives, but I think that just may be a function of time.
It's a little bit of function of that. It's complex, right? You need the right people who have the right training experience to go in and build those algorithms, to make sure that they're tuned in the right way. I'll go back a little bit of a difference between machine learning and deep learning again. One of the frustrations I think that comes from machine learning is that you constantly have to be tuning, right? A new threat comes out, you need to write, a detection for it, or you need to go and tune your models in order to then catch it the next time. Machine learning does a lot more on its own, and it can, with Deep Instinct, we can, because we're deep learning based, we have our brains updated like 3 times a year. So they're much more autonomous. And those brains, a brain as old as 9 months old, can catch a brand new threat. So that, I think, is one of the frustrations, is that constant tuning and that constant human intervention that's needed to build machine learning algorithms, where deep learning doesn't need that upkeep from the customer side. On the other side, people say, well, why isn't everybody using deep learning, right? It's a little bit more complex. It's a more sophisticated form of machine learning, and you need people who understand deep learning, are able to train the models in the right way, also have to understand cybersecurity. You can't take somebody from a different industry and come in and say, hey, build this deep learning thing for cybersecurity. You really need a deep knowledge of cybersecurity. So you have to marry all of those things together when you're building it. From the vendor side, but from the customer side, there's definitely a lot less maintenance. We hear back from customers that it's a much lighter lift. You also mentioned false positives. That is another advantage of deep learning over machine learning. So there still is a pretty high number of false positive alerts that you get on a machine learning based solution. Deep learning based solution, we're able to drop that down to less than 0.1%. We have a customer who actually is experiencing, I think it's a 0.003% false positive. So really be able to drop that down. I think we all know the SOC productivities problems that everybody's having today, the hiring problems, just keeping up. And those false positive alerts obviously affect an organization's ability to react to everything that's happening. So if we can cut those false positives down, and deep learning is, enables that to happen, you can really improve your SOC productivity overall as well. So.
Do you think that ultimately AI will help level that playing field a little bit? Because it seems like the bad guys have infinite resources and the good guys have a limited amount of resources. So will AI eventually kind of get us to a point where a smaller number of good guys can defeat a larger number of bad guys?
So interesting. So I think we're also starting to see the bad guys use machine learning, right? They're starting to use machine learning, and I often feel like there's a lot fewer bad guys out there than there are good guys trying to defend against them, and that's one of the challenges, right? We feel like we've got all this technology and all these people at the problem, and yet this smaller set of people still getting in. And they're starting to use AI. They're starting to evade detections, get around some of the techniques that are built to stop them in the first place. And then there's a sort of an upcoming threat we call adversarial AI, and it's actually poisoning the very machine learning models that are meant to protect against us. So we have that challenge coming up as well. Another advantage of deep learning is that the models, because they don't need such constant update and they're trained on bad as well as good, or good as well as bad, I should say, that it's harder to poison those models. It's harder to get at them. Nobody can ever say 100% in cybersecurity, right? But it's much harder to do. So we feel like deep learning is really that next evolution. So you're even starting to see more organizations. I saw somebody this week that I hadn't seen before using deep learning technology. So you're starting to see people moving in that way. So I think it's a matter of the types of AI that we're using, and then getting more understanding about how we can use it to protect against the very attackers who are trying to use it against us. So kind of becomes this vortex, right?
So to your point, are we now involved in something that feels like an AI arms race in cybersecurity?
I don't know if we're there yet, but we certainly have to plan for it. We have to plan. We're starting to see the seeds of it, that our attackers are starting to use AI against us. The challenge, I think, again, because there are more defenders than there are adversaries, that it takes more people power to build a deep learning, algorithm and be able to use it properly. And it takes that know-how. So I think there's an advantage there in terms of, just having the people on our side to understand it and be able to, combat it.
Where are we on the general acceptance curve? I feel like initially everybody had this kind of knee-jerk reaction and said, I don't want to use that. It threatens my job, et cetera, et cetera. And I happen to wonder now if people look at it and go, geez, my job's out of control. And if I don't have this stuff, I might not want to do this job anymore. So, have we moved from one end of the spectrum to the other?
Yeah, I think we have. I was listening to another group yesterday who was talking about AI not in a cybersecurity problem, but in that same context, right? That acceptance of, if we don't adopt more AI, we're never gonna get ourselves out of this hole. The opportunity that we have in terms of just the volume of threats that are coming at us and the people we have to defend. If we don't adopt more AI, we don't get out of this hole. And then we go specifically to how deep learning can help that problem. We did a report a couple months ago, just looking into the people challenges, and the stress on the SOC team, even from the CISO down, of people, over half had said they were considering not just leaving their job, but leaving the cybersecurity industry, because it's so stressful. And then we have this other side where we can't hire enough people coming in, right? So we can't hire enough people, and then we have people thinking about leaving. So we have to make their jobs easier. We have to, I don't think anybody has fun just sitting and going through false positive after false positive and creating spreadsheets and just doing all this checking, right? It's very manual. It's not exciting. They'd rather be, know that there's an active threat and be able to go use those, detection and response tools and the way they were built to be able to go and hunt through the systems and find out what's happening and make those correlations. That's a lot more job satisfaction going through that. So if we're able to reduce false positives, reduce the alerts that are coming in, and knowing that there's only high fidelity alerts going through, those teams are going to have much higher job satisfaction. You think about the turnover effects and the lowering of the stress that you can have from that. There could be great effects from that.
All right. There's just a lot of fatigue in cybersecurity. It's kind of like being in the military, right? It's long periods of boredom punctuated by sheer moments of terror. So can we kind of reduce that equation a little bit and say, look, we're just going to go find stuff before it becomes an issue. And maybe the whole thing could be boring one day. What do you think?
That would be fantastic, right? We could all go back to doing different things in our lives.
What is the mistake that you see people making over and over again when they first go down this path with AI and cybersecurity that you wish they knew about before they encountered it?
I think it's, understanding what the outcomes are going to be, right? I think when you think about detection and response tools like EDR, those are great tools for investigation, for remediation, but they weren't really built to prevent threats to begin with. So understanding the tools, whereas, what we're doing with deep learning is really a prevention first approach. And then we're going to, make your other systems more efficient. So I think understanding, looking at like a layered security, right? Like where in the layers, where are your gaps? Like not really understanding where your gaps are and just adopting a solution, thinking it's going to fix it instead of really identifying that gap and what solution is most appropriate to solve that.
All right, folks, we may not be ready for those overlords to take over everything just yet, but a little AI help in cybersecurity will go a long way. Where can people find this MIT white paper?
Yes. Deep Instinct website, www.deepinstinct.com. There is a download available there. There's a blog that you can get to the paper, or you can go straight to our resources section and you'll find it there as well.
Great. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Back to you guys in the studio.
Bye-bye.
This is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, we're back here live. This is day 4, our last day of live coverage at RSA conference. It's nice and quiet. It's early in the morning here. It's only about 9 o'clock. And the crowds that came in are already in. And so here in Moscone West, it's probably one of the quietest times we've had all week.
Fantastic.
Which makes for great live broadcasting. Let me introduce you to our guest for this segment. His name is Amol Kulkarni.
That's correct.
Is that
you
good?
got it right.
All right. Amol, first of all, welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself. What is your title and responsibilities? You're with, I should mention, Amol is with CrowdStrike. What do you do at CrowdStrike?
Great to be here, Alan. I am the Chief Product and Engineering Officer at CrowdStrike. So I run product management, defining the vision, the roadmap for our technology, where we are going. And then, of course, I also have engineering to deliver on that. So it's define as well as deliver. It's end-to-end ownership.
Yeah. And, we were talking a little off camera. I'm Digital CXO, our newest community and brand that we've been developing, is really a testament to this kind of new way of thinking.
That's true.
At the upper echelons, this C-level.
That's right.
And so the idea of having a C-level person who not only defines the product, but then actually leads the team building the product.
That's right.
You know what? 5-10 years ago, that was unheard of.
That was not common. Yeah.
Very not common. Yeah. But today we're seeing this more and more.
Yeah.
The chief product officer is also the chief technology officer. Or the chief engineering guy is also the CTO.
Right.
The CIO sometimes is also the chief information security officer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is it's a very different, digital transformation, I think is
pushing that out. I mean, I think the way to think about it is we work with the full DevOps mindset. And to me, DevOps is a culture,
right?
Where it's all about that end-to-end ownership. So even within engineering, we say the engineers have to own it from defining the how, the design, all the way to implementation and also supporting it in production. Right? So we don't have a separate operations team, for example. That's by design because we embrace DevOps as a culture. And I think this merging of roles is in a similar vein, right? So someone who is defining the product should also be do it in a grounded way to say, okay, what is possible.
Right.
A lot of those like the tussles, the conflicts that used to be there go away because of that. Because
Absolutely.
and you have to be balanced on both sides.
I mean, I'm thinking back to my own experience before Techstrong. I was involved in several venture-backed startups.
Right.
And, now that you say you're doing it, it just like a light bulb. It makes perfect sense.
Right.
Because we would have a product team, and I was involved, in product.
Right.
And we had a vision for what the feature looked like. This is before DevOps. We're doing a release twice a year.
Yeah.
So we had a vision of what this feature would be and what that feature would be. And then we give that to the engineering team. And, they'd come back to us with some prototypes or MVP or whatever you want to call them back then.
Right.
And that's not what we were thinking.
No, right, exactly.
That's
exactly.
not what we
so you
meant.
have to iterate and exactly. So
and so doing it, having one person own both of that, it's now that I think about it, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it works for some organizations. I mean, I wouldn't say like it's
you're right. It
like it's
depends
not a
on the
solution for everyone.
organization.
That's right.
But I think it's a forward way of looking at it.
Right.
Let's talk about CrowdStrike, though. You guys have had several product announcements during the week here at RSA.
Yep.
Why not, if you don't mind, share with our audience?
Absolutely. So super excited to talk about all of the announcements we made at RSA this week. The biggest one, I'll start with that, which to me is very exciting because it's a fundamental piece of technology that we're building. It's called CrowdStrike Asset Graph. What Asset Graph does is gives organizations a 360-degree view into all of their IT assets, their cloud assets, their mobile assets, their IoT assets, so all assets, but not just assets, also the configurations on those assets, the users and identities in their organizations.
Really? Okay.
And applications that are running deployed on those. But going even beyond that, it's also looking at relationships between all of those entities. So which users are logging on to which hosts, which applications are deployed on which hosts, are being used by which users. All of that as a holistic graph database. It is the first time that this is being done as a large-scale graph database with all of those relationships being incorporated in a truly schematized manner.
Absolutely.
So that's super exciting because I think it enables a lot of different scenarios. And the first one we are starting off with is our product Falcon Discover, which gives users the understanding of which hosts are managed meaning they have CrowdStrike Falcon sensor on them, which hosts are unmanaged, what applications are deployed, which versions do they have, which users have what kind of privileges, sort of giving you just a understanding, a visibility into your landscape. That to me is the biggest problem we have today, right?
Well, you're talking about fundamental security issues here, right?
That's right.
So number one is you can't defend what you don't know you have.
Absolutely.
Number two, look, I've been in this business for 25 years, right? You remember Big Fix?
Right.
IBM bought them
That's right.
10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the whole Big Fix model, right? Is we can't fix, you got to know what you have.
You have to know what you have.
We can
Absolutely.
fix it.
Absolutely.
They didn't, and maybe I'm not blaming them, don't get me wrong, but we didn't have the technology then to go to the depth.
That's right.
You're going.
I mean,
to
graph
now.
databases didn't exist. Like that's new, right?
I mean, we could tell what IP address and what that device said it was from that IP address.
That's right.
Applications, users, these kinds. We just didn't have. We didn't have that kind of information.
Yeah.
Number two, though, is the ability, like you said, manage devices, meaning there's some sort of agent, whether you want to call it an agentless agent or an agent.
That's right.
There's something on there.
Yeah.
But what we've seen is now the ability to do it on unmanaged devices.
Exactly.
Because again, it's easy to know what you have when you already have an agent on them.
That's right.
Chances are the ones we don't know are the ones that don't have that agent.
And that's a major problem for just even for compliance. Like, what coverage do I have? Do I have 100% coverage with the security tools that I'm supposed to be deploying?
Absolutely.
And in this remote first world, there are resources all over the place, right? That are popping up. That are part of the enterprise, but they are invisible to a large extent. Plus, shadow IT is a big thing. So all of those, like doing that sort of real-time updated 360-degree view into your assets and into your enterprise was a big hard problem. And one of the key things we solved within that is a problem of entity resolution, which is multiple data sources tell you about something, right? They may be telling you about, let's say, this computer, or another data source may be telling you some bits about the same computer, or could be about a different one. And how do you know if they're talking about two different things or two same things? Like one of the customers we were talking to was saying, hey, I have the same host name, the same IP address for two different computers on two different subnets, right? And we have to disambiguate that. So that's a hard problem of entity resolution that we've solved with this.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. We've got two more.
Yeah, two more. So the other one is we CrowdStrike recently acquired a company called Humio.
Yes.
Which is an index-free, schema-aware but schema-free data store, infinitely scalable, live search. And what we're doing as part of this announcement is to connect CrowdStrike Falcon with Humio through Humio for Falcon. So that enables Falcon data to be seamlessly moved over into Humio, enables long-term retention in Humio for users to do their compliance requirements, their auditing requirements.
Love it.
As well as retrospective hunting and forensics, right? So something happened, Falcon detected it, prevented it, mitigated it, but now 6 months later, you want to say, hey, what exactly happened? When did they come in? All of that you can do with Humio, with that infinite fast search that we are making available. So that's the second announcement.
Excellent.
Right.
Actually, I think I've done an interview with someone from CrowdStrike from Humio.
On Humio.
Humio/CrowdStrike on that.
That's right.
But that again, we didn't have that capability.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And now we do.
Yeah.
Last one.
Yeah. So the last one is around Falcon XDR. So XDR, as you obviously know, there's a lot of buzz around it, and lot of
as much as zero trust.
As much as zero trust. That's right. But we've been focused on making sure that XDR adds true value to customers, and as part of that, what we've done is integrated XDR, implemented the response part of XDR using Falcon Fusion, our SOAR framework that's built into the Falcon platform. So we've given it part of platform, not as a separate SKU. No one has to purchase it. You have it available as soon as you are a Falcon customer. And XDR is deeply integrating with that, leveraging it for all the response capabilities. And the second part is the XDR value is in the ecosystem. Which partners are part of it? How are you doing detections across multiple domains, multiple technologies, starting from EDR, but extending it out to all of the other domains. And as part of that, this week we announced addition of 3 additional partners: Mendo Security, for web and browsing, Vectra AI for NDR, and Ping Identity for
identity and access.
So all of these areas already have existing partners, and we continue to add new partners to deepen it, and more importantly, cover the technologies that our customers have deployed.
Those are also in each of their areas. These are leading companies.
That's right.
Real quality stuff there. Yeah. So this is. I sit here, I observe. I don't have to sell product, build product.
That's right.
I look at all the XDR buzz here.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if a lot of people have really got their XDR story right.
I think there's I mean, if you ask multiple people, you'll get multiple answers on what XDR even is. Right?
Well, this always happens at RSA, right?
Right.
Because you get a buzz and everyone's running with it.
That's right.
And it becomes extended. Remember, Microsoft used to use that term. We're going to extend it. Right?
Yes.
And
that's right.
Extension means a lot of different things.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we've been trying to be very, very crisp and clear on our XDR definition.
Yeah.
And really the key focus is to find detections, find alerts that one single domain would not have found.
Right.
So take weak signals from multiple different areas, from email security, from web security, from endpoint, from CASB. But because those weak signals are happening within a short window and they are correlated, you can say, oh, there is something really malicious going on here, even though each of those individually would not alert you.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea.
So this is a little more mature than some of the stuff I've seen running around here.
I hope so, yes.
Yes. So that's good. So it sounds like you guys haven't been too busy then.
We are not too busy, yes.
What about impressions of RSA this week?
RSA has been fantastic. I mean, I think biggest thing I would say is people have been super excited about meeting everyone in person. I mean, this is 2 years, 2+ years. We were here in March 2020. And towards the end of it, like people were not shaking hands, they were fist bumping, right? As the pandemic was starting, and now it's fantastic to see everyone here. So I was honestly pleasantly surprised with the traffic and the buzz, and yeah, I mean that energy is fantastic.
Keep in mind, it's still half of what it was.
It is still half of
it.
That's right. That's right.
But even half of RSA is a lot
huge.
more than any place. Exactly. So good stuff.
So I think that's great. And then, yeah, I mean, like, obviously we've had a lot of announcements. Other companies continue to do that. So there is a lot of momentum.
No, well, look, there's always stuff going on.
That's right.
In the cyber world. And you know, and traditionally RSA and then maybe Black Hat this summer is the place where it all kind of comes together and we see it in mass.
That's
but anyway, Amal, thank you
very
so
much, Alan.
for being
Great.
on our show.
I appreciate it.
Hey, we're live here at RSA. It's still quiet, but there's people on the escalators we see. We're going to be live here all day, wrapping up our coverage. We hope to see you back on. We'll be on in just a few moments.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, we're back live in Valencia, Cloud Native Con, KubeCon. It is, well, it's probably a little bit after lunch. I see a lot so it is
lunch is right now.
Lunch is right now. If you don't know this guy, you probably are not in DevOps. But it's good to see him in person. It's been too long in person, my friend.
It's been too long.
It's Baruch Zagorski. Baruch is with, of course, JFrog. You have like a fancy title now, right?
Yeah, no, I'm like the same chief sticker officer I always was.
Been, I know, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I thought they gave you a fancier title, though. Tell the
Chief sticker
truth.
officer is good enough.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Best job ever. Best job ever.
Absolutely, but the hat, the whole get-up, you look great, man.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
It's great to see you. It's great to be back in person. And yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
So what have you been up to?
Right, so I mean, same old, doing great stuff in JFrog, and the world is changing, right, in terms of what's going on with DevOps.
Yeah.
And this is really fascinating. So, Alan, what do you think are kind of the trends and what's going on in DevOps?
So here's what I see. The world keeps spinning. COVID, no COVID, wars, the world keeps spinning. And DevOps is evolving.
Yes.
Like the DevOps when I started DevOps.com 8 years ago, 8 years, maybe 9 years, it was very different, right? We spoke about things like Chef and Puppet, Ansible. And you see they've all been acquired for probably less money than we would all think. Because because they don't, to a large extent, what we see around us here at Kubernetes made them obsolete.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
But we also saw, and I've seen this in my life, and we're living it right now, these cycles. IPO, raise money, lose money, go out of business, right? And so what happens, Baruch, is everybody wants to be with a winner. Everybody wants to make money. DevOps had that gold around it, and everyone was rushing to it. And it's it's the natural way of things.
Look, everybody wants to be here.
Everybody wants to be in Kubernetes. there are going to be winners, there'll be losers. You know, I actually had this conversation with Shlomi a couple months ago, where just necessarily mean that you're a fundamentally sound company.
Of course.
And I think what we're seeing now, the biggest thing I think we're going to see in DevOps is a shakeout of who is making products that people really need.
Those
not
who
nice
get
to
it
have,
and those who make noise.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise. There's
There's
always a lot of noise. But if you make something that people must have, you'll be great.
You're right.
You accelerate through downturns in a market. If you just make noise, or you have something that's nice but not necessary, you're a loser in this market.
A great friend of mine, Leonid Igolnik, he is like a seasoned engineering executive in DevOps, and he has a very nice metaphor for it. Vitamins versus aspirin.
Yeah, that is a good metaphor for it.
Right, so you have to be an aspirin for people to buy, even when they don't have money for vitamins.
Because when they have pain, they buy.
They buy.
You're right.
And in hard times, they will
do without the vitamins.
They will do without the vitamins.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yes.
So let's bring this home to JFrog a little bit.
Well, we love to think about ourselves as aspirin, obviously, and I think the adoption JFrog Artifactory is everywhere, right?
It's everywhere.
I mean,
that's already ubiquitous.
We used to ask, what do you use for like artifact management and project management and stuff? We stopped asking that at the booth. It doesn't.
Yep.
I mean, we got to.
If you're doing artifact management, you're using Artifactory.
Right. So that's kind of that's obvious, but that's only one part of the solution. And the interesting thing about DevOps and its evolution is how we nailed some things and then we move on to other things, right? So the basics of DevOps, things that we speak for 11 years now. Stuff like SRE.
Yeah.
Site reliability
Well, we
engineering.
weren't calling it SRE 11 years ago.
Right, but then Google came in and said, hey, we have some
They wrote the book.
We have the tooling and the technology that implements DevOps. It's called SRE. What is SRE? Is when we take software approach to system administration.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has happened. It happened. We're at KubeCon because this is
no doubt.
What happened.
That's a big, huge trend.
And now we are looking at, so this is done, period. And Artifactory is a part of that. Obviously, you have to use Artifactory because you have to take this software approach to system administration, automate everything with the tools that you have done. Now, we see that people ask what's next, or the market kind of suggests them what's next. And stuff like bringing the developers now into the picture. We always spoke about how developers should be the part together with ops. This is what DevOps is about. But what we really did, except of speaking, is the SRE part, nailing down the SRE part.
Yep.
And this was bringing the system administrators to be developers, but not exactly bringing the developers to systems. And now the market kind of knocks on our door and say, hey folks, how about that? So you educated your developers to participate in the DevOps culture, and they want it. They want to be on call. They want to be there where their code is deployed to production. They want to help customers with their code. Can they do it technically? You have a developer now on call.
Yeah.
They sit in their IDE, they look at their code. What do they know about it?
So what you're describing is what I call pride. You know, there used to be like, we had guilds of workmen. If you were a barrel maker or whatever you are, a metal worker.
Craftsmanship.
Craftsmanship, right? When I was young, a long time ago.
Like last year?
Yeah. Software developers, it was a craft. There was a craftsmanship to it.
Yes.
There was a tremendous amount of pride. What you were creating was bespoke.
And it's still there. It's still there.
Yeah.
The only question is, how do we define done? What we did, we like it, and we are done. If now something goes boom, it's not our problem anymore. This is what you described. This is how it used to be. Now, 11 years into DevOps,
scale and everything.
Of course, we managed to get this message. Hey, you cannot stop in committing to GitHub. This is only the beginning of journey of your software to your customers and or users. And if you take pride of that, you need to be there when the users meet your software, which means in production. Fine, the message went across. Now we have the developers taking this pride and saying, yes, we want to be there. We want to participate. But what can we do? Our tools are GitHub, IDE, developer tools. Your tools are completely different. Kubernetes, monitoring, chaos engineering, all this stuff. Those are different tools. How do we make them work together? This is the next frontier. This is where we are now. Right, so there is this
one thing you've left out, though. Security.
Here we go.
Security.
Exactly the same thing.
Okay.
And we can look at it from two perspectives. We can say, okay, security is another silo. There are all those chips, and that's obviously the opposite incentive from everybody else now, because we want to move forward. And this has also been the view of DevOps on security. The whole idea of, hey, let's do DevSecOps was about, let's change that. Let's, instead of doing silos, let's work together. We managed to get the message across. Again, 11 years we've been talking about it, boom. Now everybody wants to be security the part of the job. The question is again, okay, how do we do it? We have security tools, like the old school. How do we plug them in to the new ones? And how do we make sure that when we use 80% of open source packages in our software, in our code, we can actually do it securely, but also not intrusive, because it's either or. You either use whatever you like, or you nail everything down, and then you cannot go
But then the
forward.
developers feel nailed down.
Exactly.
Right. So it's because. So here's the thing. These craftsman developers, they like. This has been borne out. We've seen it in DevOps. They like to use the tools that they like to use.
Of course.
They don't like to be told. I think one of the big thing when we look at, like, let's say an X-ray, and not just X-ray, there's other DevSecOps tools out here.
Not as good, obviously.
That are not as good, maybe. But but making security tools that the developer is comfortable using, that's the key. That's the unlocking the lock.
And you know how you do it? Instead of trying to pull the developers into the tools, you bring the tools to developers.
I agree.
Right.
I agree 100%.
And this is how you have the IDE plugin, right, or X-ray as well. The right code, boom, the information is right there. And then there is the desktop, the Docker desktop extensions, and that's what was announced in DockerCon last week.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that.
That you can plug those tools into the Docker desktop that developers use on their machine, and then again you will have it sooner. This is all shift left, right? It's a nasty term. It's abuse to the death.
Another abuse term. But so's DevOps.
Right. But in the end of the day, it actually makes sense, right? We do shift the tools to the developers, not because some grand idea behind it, just because people love their tools that they love. And if you want to be there, you have to take your shit and get
over there,
and not the other way
because they're
around.
not going to come.
Exactly.
They're not going to come to you. You got to bring it down. So to me, that, and I'll tell you something else. So I'm sitting here, right? There's 2 days now. I'm sitting here. We've had 15. We've had almost 25, 30 interviews in 2 days.
Right.
Baruch, at least half, if not 3/4, are about securing from a developer point of view, and securing like from the SRE point of view.
Yes.
Right?
And again, the question is, the problem is exactly there, right? You said we have two different topics. They shouldn't be two different topics.
No, they should be security.
They should be the same topic. And that's exactly where I see the next big challenge, right? How do we bring now, we nailed down the SRE part and it's great. How do we take the developers and again, start doing DevOps, start breaking silos.
So bringing them working together. I agree with you. Same tools, different things.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly. Another very interesting trend. I know you're not in a hurry. You don't have a line of people waiting to get interviewed. We're all good. We're not living in time. So another interesting trend, and I think it's fascinating, is artificial intelligence and big data
and how this is going to play out
DevOps.
in DevOps.
There are two different questions. There is the question, hey, we have a market of AI and big data. How we can implement DevOps there?
Okay.
That's an interesting topic.
That's one topic.
And there is another interesting topic.
Of how do we use that?
How we can use those in DevOps for them and for everybody else.
And that, so I'd be honest, that to me is the much more interesting topic.
For me too.
Right, because I think that's a game changer.
Of course. And we can see companies, the most interesting ones, start doing that. We can see all the...
But it's baby steps.
It's baby steps because it's hard. So I'll give you an example. For example, we want to plug the developers back to DevOps, right? This is what we spoke about. And we want to make observability not only on systems, but also on code. But making observability on code is very hard because code goes a long way between when it was written to when we observe it in production and when it actually matters.
Understood.
Right? How do we make this tracking, how do we provide context which speaks to developers in production? This is a question for a lot of machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data. Because this is how we know, this is where we learn how code behaves, right? That's one example. Another might be systems are complicated. How developers can understand a context of a special piece of this huge puzzle every time, especially in stressing scenarios. On call, boom, something went boom at night 3 a.m. Everybody are running with their hair on fire. The problem is somewhere in code. This developer, how do they know anything about it, right? And this is, I think, where the technology can enable us to bridge this gap that they were talking about all day.
When do you think we'll see this?
We see seeds of it now. My biggest concern is, okay, the ideas are there. We understand how they can help. Is the technology already there? When I see a website that promises me that, I say, okay, I understand why. I understand how, in principle, it is done. Will your tool, when it will be available, actually work?
And that's the big question.
That's the big question, and it's a new question. Before, the question was how it is even related. And then the question is, do we really need it? Or it's just adding AI to everything and that's make everything sexy. Those two, we already got it. We understand why they need them, we understand how they can help. The question now, will they actually help? And when? Yeah. And that's the interesting question. And I think this is a fascinating area to look at and to be watching in the next year. I think we will.
We'll talk more about it.
We will.
I got to go, though. We got people waiting. I think we lost our next one.
Such is life. Lose. That's all. What I say.
All right. Hey, we're live in Valencia with my friend Baruch from JFrog. Check it out. Awesome. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back here in a moment.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Looking for a live conference focused on the tools, technologies, and practices most important to your business? Innotech conferences are live one-day business and technology conferences highlighting the latest in trends for IT leaders, developers, and IT professionals. Each event combines education, innovation, peer-to-peer networking, and the latest technology and business solutions for a diverse IT-focused audience. Innotek conferences occur throughout the year in strategic regional locations, bringing together technology professionals from various industries to learn about the solutions, practices, and tools impacting their day-to-day work and gain insight into what's to come. Presenters at Innotek conferences are selected and curated to ensure each session provides the most up-to-date and relevant information without any hype. Whether you're interested in digital transformation, cybersecurity, cloud, IT leadership, or DevOps, Innotek conferences deliver. 2022 events are scheduled to be held in Austin, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Houston, and Washington, D.C. Innotek conferences are produced by Techstrong Live and powered by Techstrong Group.
Hi again, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode of Techstrong TV. Our wonderful hosts brought us around the world for interviews with some of the industry's brightest. From Alan to Mitch to Charlene to Mike Vizard, today's slate was full of incredible content. We'll be back again on Thursday, so please join us for that. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again. And as always, stay strong, Techstrong.